Welcome back to the Podmen, the wrestling podcast we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button. We're also available on Anchor, so if you prefer the audio version of our show, you'll get it over there, Spotify, Podbean, or wherever you pick up your audio shows. That's where you will find us. Joining me tonight, as always, my brothers, the Podmen. Back again after a sabbatical last week, Joe the Beef Duigan. Joe, how you doing?
Good to be back, man. Missed it last week. You did a great job, though. It was a cracking show. Glad to be back.
You missed a belter of a show. And as always, my tag partner, the hot tag, the D-O-double-G, Jason Kennedy. How we doing, my man?
Fuck yeah, baby. Nothing less than perfect. I don't get out of bed for anything less than 100%, which is why I spend an awful lot of my life in bed. Do you know what I mean? If you ain't up to it, don't get out of it.
It pays to be rude.
Absolutely.
Well, this week, obviously, the show is brought to you by Wrestling Mania. You'll find us on Instagram now at Wrestling Mania Dublin. So head over there for all our latest special offers and latest stock that has come in. And tonight's episode is going to be about the one and the only Mr. Controversy Creates Cash, Mr. Eric Bischoff. Lads, how are we thinking on this one?
It's going to be a raw shoot, isn't it? I mean, you talk about men in pro wrestling over the last 25 years, there's only one other name I can think of who polarizes opinions quite like this guy. And as Cornette calls shit stain, I'm sure he'll get his own episode sometime in the future too. But this one be about Bischoff, and Jesus, what a storied career.
Absolutely. It was interesting with Cornette's approach to it, because Cornette was the man who gave him his break really in the business. So it's an interesting idea. So let's kick it off then. Mr. Eric Aaron Bischoff, born May 27, 1955, no less in Detroit, Michigan. Badass city. Goes into the AWA in 1989 under the tutelage of Vern Gagne. Gets promoted, first of all, from the backstage area into an on-air interviewer as a host of the AWA. Got the job by chance because Larry Nelson was arrested for a DUI and was promoted into that position by Jim Cornette, no less. And he was actually hesitant to take the job, believe it or not. But they identified him as being appropriate for the job because he wore a suit, a shirt, and tie.
Some credentials.
Major qualifications needed for that, obviously.
There you go. It was like, who do we need for an interview here? An interviewer here backstage. That guy looks well in a three-piece. Come over here, you.
Who's the kid in the clothes?
No less with dark hair.
Yeah, who's that kid with the Sean Mooney hair and the clothes? Get him over to me. He looks legit. I'd let him date my daughter.
In 1990, the AWA begins its demise, and he heads off to WWF and does an interview, but isn't hired. Does not get the job.
Needed more than a suit for that one, obviously.
Absolutely. Heads off.
Probably a more expensive suit.
Joins World Championship Wrestling as a C-show announcer, debuting at the Great American Bash, reporting to producer Tony Schiavone, and of course WCW's president of broadcasting, no less Jr. Jim Ross. 1993, after WCW Wrestling's operations, Bill Watts resigns from the company. Bischoff goes hunting for the job. So here we see the beginning of the power moving to the top. There was 3 candidates for the job: Tony Schiavone, Jim Ross, and Eric Bischoff. Bischoff gets the job. Tony Schiavone stays put and says, I ain't going nowhere. Jim Ross says, I've had enough of this. I'm off the WWF.
Well, that was a serious jump for someone that came from where Bischoff was to get that job, especially over those 2 lads. Like, that's a massive jump and a big leap.
Those 2 serious jumps that happened right there. You got a young fella who has a suit and Sean Mooney's hair going into a position above 2 men who've been incredibly lifers, and then one going over to the opposition. I mean, that's like a general leaving one army to join another, and that insane decision. Probably at a A lot to do with the way the futures of both companies went as well. LJR jumping ship because he didn't like Eric Bischoff's hair.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm sure for 83 weeks of it, he wasn't sure whether it was the right jump or not, but however. In 1994, he's promoted to executive producer to senior VP. And including a number of executives, including Jim Barnett, resign. Not sure whether they resigned over that, but I mean, you could have a feeling probably. Bischoff convinced Turner to finance WCW even more. And we know the history of what went down there. He moves the company down to Universal Studios or Disney MGM. And while he's down there, who happens to be just down there making thunder in paradise? Mr. Hulk Hogan. So Mr. Bischoff and Mr. Ric Flair head off to have a meeting with Hulk Hogan, and they convince him to join the company. So he signs a contract. He also made big investments. He moved the pay-per-view schedule up. I think the pay-per-view schedule at the time was about 7. Or sorry, it was originally 5. I think he moved it to 7, 10, and then on to 12. And he also invested in some of the more glitzy kind of stuff to bring up the quality of the show, if you like. And then, of course, they obviously launched Monday Nitro. And this is really where we see the kickoff of the Monday Night Wars. This is where they start going in because I think they're live and Raw was recorded. They started giving away some of the results. This is pulling back the curtain, if you like. Tony Schiavone. I mean, a lot of people would remember him giving away Foley's win of the title, which was
that was the big one that backfired on them. That one. It's the one everyone talks about. As you said, they did it a few times where they gave away the result, but that's the big one because there was such a sea change. Because couldn't they see in the TV ratings that at that time, just when they said that, like half the viewers,
everybody switched over.
Like huge viewership changed over to see Mick Foley winning, like a massive thing.
Fucking idiots.
But like I don't know what their thinking was there. Like they like I'd understand if it was some shitbag that people didn't like was winning it. They were like, why would you bother changing over that? But Mick Foley was always stupidly popular with people. To think it was a good time to give away a result when it was one of a really popular fella is beyond me. I don't know.
It's almost the birth of the spoiler. You know what I mean? That word wasn't really in the lexicon of fucking communication before then. It's like, thanks for giving birth to the spoiler, WCW. Now you can't go onto Facebook until you've watched the last Game of Thrones episode. Like, now everything is spoiler this, spoiler that. Like, fuck off with that shit.
I wonder, I sometimes wonder at the time, did they believe Foley was a credible champion, or did they think the reaction was that people were going to laugh at the fact that they had put the strap on him?
They've always sneered at Foley. There's always been this fucking hierarchy of pro wrestling initiated alumni who've seen him as this stuntman jobber with a check shirt and a massive amount of fans simply because he was so likable and adorable. They never really credibly viewed him as a legitimate fucking top shelf entertainer, which we all know at the end of the day he was. What makes you a top shelf entertainer is if you put seats or fill seats and draw fans, you're as legitimate as anybody. Man, I guess he got the last laugh on them all in the end, really, didn't he?
Absolutely. And now, just after joining us there, the 4th member of the 4 Podmen. We can't have a 4 Podmen show if we don't have a 4th member. What's happening? The Dynamo's in the house.
Oh,
well, it worked well last week. I'm just saying, like, you know. No, I'm only joking. No, I'm only kidding, guys. Sorry, I just came off a very good podcast there with Jonathan O'Dwyer, a friend of the show's, Niall, one of your very pals. Good, yeah. So I was just trying to get set up there and had a few internet problems, but I'm glad to be here. Glad to see all you beautiful gentlemen. And tell me what I've missed in 5 seconds. Jay, I'm giving you this one.
Absolutely nothing. The hustle never stops, boss. The hustle never stops from one show to another. These people don't realize how easy they have it, you know?
We're talking about Easy E today. I'm liking that. I'm liking that.
Just to bring you up to speed.
Is looking great. Niall is looking great, the background. And I have to say, the winner for the best top of the year goes. Jay knew straight away what I was going to say.
I knew where he was leading. with that. And I only picked this out of...
Jay wore this specifically for me tonight and probably went, this bastard isn't even going to be here.
I did two reasons. One for you, always for you, and two for Easy E and one of his late WCW decisions.
I love it.
I felt it was apt.
Right, well, just
very much so.
Just to bring you up to speed,
we
ran quickly through his stellar career in the AWA, and at the moment we're up as far as 1995.
Oh, my favorite year!
Right?
Perfect time to come in. So
1995 was the year that the changes really started to take effect, and it was the year that WCW turned a profit. And by 1997, Bischoff's official title, had become President of World Championship Wrestling. So this is in such a short period, if you think about it, this man had shot right to the top of the organization and trampled on a lot of heavy hitters on the way. Ian, do you want to chime in on that and to do with 1995? That jumps to mind.
Yeah, like I mean, I've actually read Eric's book twice. Once when I was younger, just because I was in Jay and Joe, I'm sure you remember, like you read all those when you're younger just to kind of read every biography. So you're looking for the dirt and looking for the stories. Second time around, I read it just actually looking more for the depth to see what got him to the dance. And Eric, like, I mean, for me, I think Eric Bischoff is one of the most underrated people involved in wrestling, purely from his knowledge from the standpoint of how to put a television show together and how to kind of create a narrative and to see the bigger picture. We're not, he doesn't need to be a Pat Patterson or a Vince Russo and be the story writer. He needs to be the Vince McMahon here. But the difference with Vince McMahon is he is the guy, whereas Eric was a guy working under a conglomerate. So, I mean, his job was always on the line. And I think what he did was, I mean, I always thought he was a great announcer. He was always a good-looking guy. He looked like that Ken doll. You know what I mean? I think that's what they used to slag him, saying he looked like that Ken doll. He had a great background in martial arts as well, so he respected the business as well. He wasn't a pushover or a pussy. He was the exact type of guy that WCW needed for that exact time. And I think 1995 is the kind of pivotal year. I'm sure you'll agree, lads, that really he's got enough respect, I suppose, on certain elements of the board and from, the likes of Hogan and the big players, within the locker room to kind of, I suppose, have the big balls and go in and say, look, one of my favorite lines of his was like, do you see all these pencils that you keep throwing away? Each one of them costs money. You know what I mean? And he tried to change a culture. And I really like that. I think he was
aware of every aspect of his product.
Kind of background in there as well.
Everything. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
And I'm sure it was only a little example.
He was
exactly. So yeah, here's
a question, man.
Sorry,
do we think you just said something there that had me thinking? Do we think that the WCW made the right choice in choosing Eric over Tony or even JR? Like, I know it's a spitball in hindsight.
Yes.
But...
Yeah. Most definitely.
Interesting.
Yeah, for me personally.
Yeah. No, I think so as well. I think the other two were very wrestling purists, and I think you hit on a very interesting fact there. Again, a consideration I hadn't had before. He only got into the business with Vern and AWA when he was working for free, basically marketing the fact that he owned a suit and had fucking Ron Burgundy hair. Like, I mean, he's always hammed up his image. He's always leaned on it. I think sometimes when he came across as, like you said, that Ken doll-esque attitude, I think he was very aware of his public image, and he knew how hokey and corny it was and made it work by leaning on it so heavily. Do you know what I mean? He didn't look like a pro wrestling alumni, but he learned on the run. He was only in the business for 6-7 years, and he was already.
Jay, you actually done something. You done something there with your eyebrow, that, like, just something as simple as that, right? You were explaining something. You lifted your eyebrow just a little bit, and that it reminded me of something, because as you were explaining that narrative, I thought of Eric Bischoff when he was the heel NWO manager. He'd be like, so, he knew. Very, very Vince McMahon-esque in the sense that he was naturally a talented actor, I think, without even having to try.
He was definitely a natural performer, no question.
Natural performer, and I think everything you said is spot on. I think being married to the business for like Tony Schiavone is too nice. I think Tony Schiavone is too much of a nice guy. I think to kind of burden him with that. I think JR is also too much one of the boys that
Too institutionalized.
stick up for the boys.
Yeah,
there you go. And I think between the two of us there on those points, I think we have Eric Bischoff summed up to a fucking T.
Yeah, he was the right man at the right time.
Well, I think, lads, if they had gone with Tony or JR, they wouldn't have got as big as they did. But they wouldn't have spent as much. They wouldn't have lost as much. And I think they might have actually survived longer, but they never would have got to the heights they did if they'd gone with either of the other two, I think. But I think they could still be around if one of the other two got it instead.
That's a topic for about an hour's time. I've got a new layer to my tinfoil hat on that one now, one that I didn't have before I sat down and appreciated what Bischoff did with the business. I don't think he was ever allowed, scheduled in, or penciled down to succeed. I think he wasn't just fighting Vince. I think he was fighting his own fucking executives. But it's interesting. It was a very interesting subject. It's a very important subject. It's the last great boom of competitive company wrestling, and it's definitely worth a trawl through.
Yeah, I suppose when you look at Tony and JR as well, even if they had got the job, they would have never taken the risks. I mean, Bischoff took so many risks along the path as well, that could have easily backfired. I mean, we often talk about Hogan turning heel and all and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
That's what I meant. No, WCW never would have gotten as big. No way. And as I said, but wouldn't have spent nearly as much money, and they wouldn't have gone. I doubt they would have started a Monday night show to rival WWF or anything like that. They just would have stayed in their lane and they just would have done their thing. And
you're right, Joe. You're 100% right. You're 100% right. Yeah, it's funny because Joe, you remember the story. I think you were the first person to tell me this years ago, and then I'd read it later. Remember the story of Diamond Dallas Page when he first met Eric Bischoff, and apparently they were about to get into a brawl. And Diamond Dallas Page was like, this guy is like half my size, and Bischoff is like in this karate stance. And
Come on.
Like, and he was like, this little bollocks probably knows something that I don't. And they became best friends out of it. But like, Joe, just to your point, that's kind of what, because Eric Bischoff, forget about the facade and the Ken doll look and the face and blah, blah, blah. The lad had balls as big as Vince McMahon did, if not bigger in some ways, and didn't give a shit. You know what I mean? And said, like, I'm gonna live and die by my work here. You know what I mean? And that's really what gets Nitro off to the dance. And like, I mean, I suppose, Noel, you're probably gonna jump in on this, but the Luger thing, like, I mean, that was just a stroke of genius, and it shows Eric Bischoff's genius, in my opinion, anyway.
But just when you said there about Ian, about him having big nuts compared to Vince McMahon and all this kind of crack.
Well, I don't mean compared. Sorry, I just meant...
but like you have to remember, Vince McMahon was spending his own money. Bischoff was spending someone else's.
Oh no, that's
also Vince didn't have any until he sold Brett.
But at the end of the day, Bischoff was always going to get paid.
This is true. This is true.
You know what I mean? Now he could lose his job, obviously, but he was obviously going to, like, if it went bankrupt, he was still going to get money at the end of the day. Whereas if McMahon went bankrupt, he was completely tits up and he was in serious trouble. So I can. Now, as I said,
oh no,
Bischoff,
I'm
Bischoff pushed the envelope in a big way. You absolutely did.
I guess if you're going to run against Big Vince, it's go big or go home.
Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, like, I'm not comparing them in the sense of, like, that it's the same thing. It's just more, I'm saying they're actually quite similar characters, that they both had the balls to put it up to, the corporations and the companies. Because don't forget, Vince had to do that as well. That's all. But you're 100% correct.
So, lads, then we move on. We're back at 1996. And firstly, the Outsiders come in. So initially Hall, followed in by Kevin Nash. And of course, then we lead on to the NWO and Hogan turning heel. Ian, what was your memories back then? Hall in there and Nash, the Outsiders.
Well, I mean, my opinion on the two people that we're talking about, but in terms of the relocation, if we can call it that, I thought it was a stroke of genius from Bischoff just to get them over. He knew that those two boys, obviously from the conversations that they had, that they were all about getting that green, and to use it to his advantage against the Fed, I think it was absolutely a stroke of genius. Absolutely, because I mean, 95, 96, you're talking about Diesel was one of their main guys. Razor was definitely in the picture in the Intercontinental conversation, and could have possibly been up in the world conversation at some point. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I think it was a stroke of genius, and I think when they went over, it really did. It legitimately did take eyes from that product over to that product for the first time. Especially then, you realize, oh shit, Hogan's still on this as well. Like, what's he up to? Blah blah blah. Do you know what I mean? So there was a lot of nostalgia for the casual fan, and I think that's exactly what Eric Bischoff did. Was he took the casual fan and also the wrestling fan that probably just wanted a bit of everything as well. Do you know what I mean? It was just a genius marketing ploy, in my opinion.
One thing I thought was brilliant. Were you finished there, Ian? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I was, Joe. Yeah.
What I thought was brilliant as well is that they brought them in with their real names. They didn't repackage, try to make it different, try and like do a rip off of Diesel or a rip off of Razor Ramon kind of thing. They just brought them in, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, played it off as legit. As I said, no kind of goofy gimmicks to try and imitate what they already were. And I thought that was magnificent the way they did that.
And to be fair, Joe, as well, I have to add as well, because I know I give Scott Hall and Kevin Nash some shit sometimes, but they actually played it really well. In particular, Scott Hall, like they played it like they looked like if someone in the audience was going to fuck with them, that they were ready to fucking bounce as well. You know what I mean? So they actually did play it well too. So
they're a very odd couple, aren't they? I mean, the way they played it when they went into WC, it was like being paid ridiculous money to be yourself. Like, they are very charismatic men. They're probably better personalities than they are pro wrestlers. And we know fucking Scott, when he wants to go and he's focused, he's as good as anybody on his day.
Fact. Yeah.
But getting him to the point where he wants to go is very difficult. And Kevin he eats up the camera. He's brilliant. He is. Now, like I said, I wouldn't be a massive fan of them as humans, but as placed superstars going in with their own names, and that, like you said perfectly, Joe, the fact that they didn't waddle in with fucking stupid gimmicks like, this is Green Diesel and this is Raymond Ramirez. Do you know what I mean? It was perfect. It was.
Do you want to hear something funny today? I was obviously on another podcast today, and I was asked. It came up somehow, and it was the conversation about Scott Hall saying that it was driven to me that Scott Hall said, "Oh well, Bret Hart has a shrine to himself in his own house. It's a bit weird." And I was like, well, it's better than just going into Scott Hall's house and finding literally a lake of fucking cans. So, like, so I just thought I'd throw that out there as well.
Yeah, listen, I have absolutely no problem. I mean, above my bed in my bedroom right now, there's a massive picture of me lying on a bearskin rug, naked, wearing nothing but cowboy boots and drinking a glass and holding a smile. I feel that's where that picture belongs. It impresses me every day when I see it.
But I do. Keeping on topic though, I know I segue there, but look, I do agree with Jay, and that is my fault. And I do agree with Jay and Joe there that, like, those two at that time were the exact right components for that to work, I think. Do you know what I mean? Because Scott Hall coming out being the whole, not giving a fuck kind of attitude.
The fucking swagger out of them.
Yeah, exactly. He was the banter out of them. Exactly. Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, and rumor has it that picture was taken in Titan Towers, but that rumor has still been confirmed. But yeah, I remember when the two boys came in, obviously being called the Outsiders was the perfect name for them as well. And I remember the way they came in, it was a very simplistic introduction. They came in and made it very clear to everyone that they were there for the money. That it didn't, they didn't hide the fact that Bischoff was bent over the desk writing checks. There was no doubt about it. But then we move on. One of the most historical milestones in the business that we revere and love. The red and yellow becomes the black and white, and Mr. Hulk Hogan turns heel. Jay, come in here. Talk.
Well, you know, when it takes a man 15 years of his professional televised career to actually get to be whoever he was to begin with, it's a fucking glorious revelation. Thank you for putting away your bullshit and your lies and your facetious attitudes to fandom and being who you really are, because it was a breath of fresh air at
Keep
the
it
right
professional,
time.
Jay, will you? Come on.
Well, let me tell you about him, brother. Let me tell you something about. No, it was. Look, you know what? When you get to be yourself after so many years of being somebody who you can't be for years, it was refreshing to see heel Hogan. He was interesting. He was fun. It shook up the
fun.
world, you know. But I think the thing about it is people make a big deal about it more so than anything else. But to the lay person, it probably was a massive revelation. But to all of us who've actually been watching wrestling with our eyeballs, it wasn't really that much of a change. He just got a new wardrobe. You know?
To be fair, the wardrobe was cool, and I think that's what really made it cool for the old school fan, Jay. Isn't that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, it was. It was like the man said himself. He was the right guy in the right place at the right time, brother. Only this time he was actually telling the truth for once.
I think it might actually be exaggerating a small bit on him changing his wardrobe. All he did was tie dye his yellow and red stuff into black and white, like, because the exact same stuff, and he grew a bit of stubble, like. But
I know, Joe.
Yeah.
To be fair though, Joe, he looked completely
He
different,
did.
and I think it
He
was
did.
awesome
He
because
did.
he had the big, the better things around him. And all.
He just took
Like,
a lend of another piece of superstar Billy Graham's gimmick with the blonde on the black stubble, like.
Look, to
we
be
hadn't
fair,
seen before.
To be fair though, I think it still was awesome. Like, and at the end of the day, we're done on this shit. We're done on this show. We're done on this show. We're done on this
was
show
awesome.
with the agenda. The Hogan. Hogan. No, I think Jay is right. I think what the fact that it was Hogan that done that heel turn. I mean, we all saw the reaction, plain as day. I mean, they were poor old Gene Okerlund got hit with a fucking apple or something in the head, or a Pepsi. I think he said when he was interviewing them, and he said it was literally one of the most raucous crowds he's ever been in his entire career. And don't forget, he was around for a long time. So I mean, that turn was absolutely massive, to turning everything, moving everything forward. You know what I mean? So it was very, very well worked, and I think Bischoff was 100% right in making that call. So
it was an excellent bit of performance professional wrestling. It was. It was.
Definitely.
It was a headline stealer. Do you know what I mean?
Most definitely,
Yeah.
At a time when it needed.
Yeah, I think it was a massive change, Joe. To go back on your point there, when a man stops saying his prayers and takes a hell of a lot more vitamins, that's a massive change. You know, but yeah, I mean, and the amount of those NWO shirts that sell even to this day, you know, but then we see, you know, the NWO becomes front and center, and here we see Bischoff not happy to be commentating, not happy to be the president of the company, wants to become this massive ego maniac on screen as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and goes in full bore. Goes back 1998, hires Ted DiBiase to be the financial advisor of the NWO, and then cans it and decides, I'm going to take that role myself. Who needs that?
And for the better, right? I mean, you wouldn't say that often. But for the better. Like, are you listening, Tony Khan? This is why you'll never be like that. Do you know what I mean? Eric obviously had a natural broadcasting ability, but that doesn't always lend itself to being able to be a performer, as Jay mentioned earlier. Like, there's a difference. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, there's being comfortable in front of a camera, but, you know, interviewing somebody, asking the questions, the token questions, blah, blah, blah. Being in the actual ring and talking to a whole arena whilst still maintaining the eyes on the fucking hard cam, looking at that red light, is a different kettle of fish altogether.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Eric took to it. I'm gonna finish on this. I just think Eric took to it like a duck to water.
Yeah, he was pretty much the original Mr. McMahon, wasn't he?
Yes, he was the prototype for that whole fucking character. He was, and to deny it would be just to plain flat out lie. I mean,
And Vince
there's a
knows
lot of
that.
things.
Yeah,
He does. There's a lot of things that were happening in WCW that McMahon mirrored. And the problem with history is it's always wrote by the victors in any other sense. And we look at these things, we say, oh, McMahon, what an online character. We don't credit the people who were deservedly credited with it. I mean, Eric Bischoff is still hated because he played his fucking character so well. He's not he's not the guy who was on WCW TV.
he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy.
Like, I mean, and the fact that he's still berated and hated to the same level at times that fucking Russo is, you're like, well, if you can't see why you hate him, he's played his character to a fucking T. And don't talk to me about kayfabe being over when you still hate a man who was totally not who he was on camera. Like, make your mind up. It's real or it's fake, but you can't seem to make a fucking opinion on these things. Like, it's you know, and it's a testament to him as his character and him how he was into it. And he fucking loved it. I mean, you watch any of those old broadcasts, he was like a kid in his own toy box. He had all these figures to play with, and he realized it. And when he copped onto it and he started becoming an online character, it was like, this is the best thing ever. And I don't care who hates me.
Can I say one thing as well? And because I don't know whether you have this written down, Noel, but like one of his genius as well was, and I think I've mentioned this on a previous podcast, maybe it was the AEW Revolution show, possibly. I was saying, if Tony Khan wants to be the next Eric Bischoff or the next WCW or whatever, blah, 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 and be the successful version rather than the aftermath version, because that was nothing to do with Eric Bischoff. And I will argue and debate any man on the planet about that. The thing is, Eric was so smart that he divvied out. He knew that he wanted a cruiserweight division. He wanted different elements in the roster to fulfill what it needed to do until it got to the main event. Now, at the same token, I always felt, and it did annoy me a little bit, and Joe, I know you're going to back me up on this, that the commentators were always instructed to kind of talk about the main event during, you know, some of the matches, and that used to bother me too. And I know we've had conversations about this, rather than talking, you know, you get jobbers like Jerry Flynn going in there against Conan. Oh, Conan with the Tequila Sunrise, Jerry Flynn is tapping out like a motherfucker, and they're like, oh, and Conan wins by Tequila Sunrise. You know, you're like, wow, like, could you not have like let us know the narrative? That was the main problem. It was always the narrative always was set around the main event, and that was their only downfall. And that's not like, that's not the commentator's fault. I have to say that's on Eric, because you know, Tony Schiavone. Yeah, like you had Tony Schiavone, Mike Tenay, Larry Zbyszko, and Bobby the Brain Heenan. Those boys they know how to commentate. But the point I was trying to make was that he divvied it out, and he had someone like a Kevin Sullivan in the background that could work with lower guys, and he was the booker, and that's it. He didn't take on every single responsibility. And that's what you know, when people think that I'm against Tony Khan and all this, no, I'm with you, Tony Khan. I'm trying to fucking light a spark up your arse so you can see the error of your ways here and look back and go, you need a booker who is not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a big name. Listen, Pat Patterson's the first Intercontinental Champion of all time. No one really knew who he was in the 80s and 90s if you were a casual fan. But he had enough respect in the locker room because of his previous work that people would go, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, he's our Finnish guy, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Agents and Finnish guys and bookers are completely different. And I think that's Eric, literally, I thought he divvied all of that out in the background very well up until the point fucking Kevin Nash got the book, and that's when everything went downhill. But like, that's for later. Anyway.
Yep. So then we're still in 1998 here, and obviously Vince McMahon is sitting back and going, I've had about enough of this ratings war. I've had about enough of this WCW. And he launches the Attitude Era. And good Lord, did he go into war with these boys. And it begins a certain decline in WCW then at that stage as Vince begins to win the rating war back again. But even so, in 1998, WCW was still doing strong business, even though the ratings were starting to swing back to WWF.
Yeah.
Move into 1999. This is where, you know, some decisions made at the time were absolutely crazy and led mainly to the downfall of the business. Promotes Kevin Nash, the head booker. Mistake number one.
Yep.
You know, then they decide that despite Goldberg being so strong as champion and generated nearly $1 million in gates through December and January in that year, the decision was
Alone.
Alone. The decision was made. The decision was made. And this was at a time where wrestling tickets weren't really expensive either. You know what I mean? It's not like it is today. Belt goes on Nash, and then Nash decides to drop the belt to Hogan in the
finger poke of doom.
Well, no, that was actually with Jeff Jarrett. That was Bash at the Beach. The one that you're talking about with
no, you're wrong, Ian. Ian, you're wrong. The finger poke of doom was Nash. Jarrett
sorry. No, you're correct. You're correct. Yeah, sorry, my bad. No, sorry. I got ahead of myself there. I was thinking of the Russo one. My bad.
Jarrett just laid down that time.
Yeah.
And this was a different episode.
Yeah.
So as you can imagine, by March of that year, the ratings were beginning to plummet.
Noel, this is when they do the conglomerate and they bring the red and the black together, and they have the red and the black and the white all together, and they start bringing the Flairs and all that in, David Flair and everything, and Tori Wilson. Yeah. My apologies. And
we see NWO, instead of becoming 3 members, becoming an army of anyone and everyone.
It was literally the NWO show. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, and we'll get onto it later as well, when you look at the Hall of Fame and the NWO going into the Hall of Fame, there's about 25 members missing, but however. So then the March, the ratings are dropping, and WCW began experiencing an endless streak of rating losses focused on its aging stars. So the focus switched to DDP, Savage, Sting, Piper, Sid, and also signing dealings with Kiss, no doubt, and Dennis Rodman. And this is where they were really spending a fortune to try and shift the power again, and it just backfired greatly. Getting into 99, then suddenly they started losing they were losing $5 million a month in 99. Attending this paper.
$5 million.
$5 million.
Fucking pocket money. Spend that on the chippers.
That's grand. That's all right.
And then in 99, on September the 10th, they made a decision to relieve Eric of his position.
Now, with all of that, can I just say something?
Shoot.
Very, very simple. Eric, again, is the fall guy on this, right? He's the one that is championing all of these talents. So he's saying, right, we have this idea, we have that idea, we need this, we need that, we need this, we need that. The merger is also happening during this point, Noel, as well.
Yeah.
The Time Warner merger. And this is making things incredibly hard for Eric. So there's lots of guys that already don't like Eric, so they're just basically saying, bye, you're done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, well, we just get the guy in, because we know that there's another little New Yorker out there that can just come in and try and charm the pants off them and go, oh, yeah, well, I can do better. And he comes in. I don't think any of that. Now, in fairness, what I will say is I do remember, and I do apologize. I'm glad Joe corrected me on that as well, because I do obviously the finger poke of doom I got ahead of myself. I was thinking of the fucking Bash at the Beach.
Shit gets emotional, yo.
It does get emotional, actually, because I was thinking, because I remember that finger poke of doom, and I was like, what is this? Like, because I was watching it live, like I said, I had tapes. I'd get my uncle to tape 2 weeks ahead, and I grab it, watch it, and go, what in the name of Jesus is going on? You know, all I want to do is watch Chris Benoit wrestle Bret Hart, and this is what I get. Do you know what I mean? I think Eric lost a run of himself only because he passed the book, as Noel correctly said, to 1 7-foot jabroni, basically a trying to keep it clean here.
Yeah, but is that not Bischoff's fault for doing that in the first place?
Absolutely. And that's the power of influence. Absolutely. But I mean, that's like saying it's Vince McMahon's fault as well for, allowing, certain episodes. And you're 100% correct. It is his fault.
It's kind of, it is and it isn't. It isn't and it isn't. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, he had 3 very big, very massive draws who gave him his previous 2 years of success in his ear going, trust me, trust me, trust me, trust me, trust me. Unfortunately, these men were very self-absorbed and seen the show as their show and not the bigger picture. I mean, it was his fault that he signed it over, but it wasn't his fault that they had brought him a success, and he was working off what had worked in the past. He made executive decisions based on what had worked already, and ultimately it wasn't the truth that he was told. So, but hindsight is 2020. Again, I see a lot of parallels with AEW.
Jay is right there, 100%.
There's a reason I refer to AEW as AEW CW. We're seeing the same thing happening right now. History repeating itself, and it did in TNA for a little while as well, but that's further down the pike now. But to look at the makeup of why WCW is so successful, one, you had many mitigating factors. One, there was a serious fucking surge in former WWF talent in the business. Two, they managed to hold on to all their original WCW fans because all their WCW stars were there. But they also drew in a lot of my generation's pro wrestling fans because we wanted to see the Pipers. The other company was in a tumultuous upheaval in making new stars.
Jay, can I just stop you there as well, and you can continue, because a lot of the guys down in Atlanta, right? They were former WWE stars, say, as you say. Like, we were the nostalgia. Yeah, it was nostalgia to them as well because they were seeing Piper and Ted DiBiase and all those guys at home also. Yeah.
But what I'm talking about, there would have been in pro wrestling. There's always a changing of the guard, right? There's certain they have the key demo. It's a real enough term. And in the mid-90s, right, you have your wrestling fan at that age. We would have been children in the 80s. We were coming into adulthood in the mid-90s. We'd one eye on the program and the other eye on the bar. So we were hopping and jumping and in and out, essentially. But we don't like sitting around watching new stars being made and waiting for them to be famous to finally turn around and say, okay, I guess I was wrong. After 15 years, he is very good. We like immediate hit. And the Pipers and the Flairs were always that. But they were established and they were waning in their abilities. Well, not Flair, obviously, but there was a lot of men who they brought over who were waning in their physical abilities and wanted to earn as much money as they could for as little as possible. But we like watching wrestling content. We watch between the bells. And the problem with WCW was they had this tremendously talented undercard that was being neglected for men who were wasting the last hour on a vanity project. Now, there's a switchover point in programming where your brain just turns off. When you've been watching something for so long, you should just be absorbing it in like fucking photosynthesis. You should be sponging what's coming in between them bells if the action is good. Like the likes of fucking Best of 7 series, and they had the juniors, and they had Japanese talent long before WWE would even look at hiring somebody from that side of the world. They had fucking the vanilla midgets who were fucking excellent. Now, maybe not as early when the change was making, but there was a fan change. It got to a stage where after 2 years, former people who were watching WCW kind of went, well, you know what? I'm going back to WWF because this is getting almost preposterous at this stage. I mean, I'm watching an hour and a half of men I watched when I was, a young fella watching wrestling. Where's the new shit? And there was almost like a juxtaposition where I don't think WCW lost fans. I think it lost its new fans who went back home and said, look, I prefer the other product and the way it's branded.
It depended on where you were from, like, whether you were north or south or whatever. And I'd agree with that. Like, I think Noel, you like, because you've obviously done the research as well, like myself, in terms of looking at where you kind of think Bischoff went wrong. Where do you think he went wrong, actually?
Handing the book over to Kevin Nash was certainly a huge
detrimental
mistake. You know what I mean? But even when you look at it also as well, I think they underestimated, like when they lost the Radicals and stuff like that as well. I think there was an underestimation that, like, Asher, what does it matter? You know what I mean? And there was a fan base there as well. that drifted over to the other side, that followed the likes of Eddie and Chris and Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn and those guys, because that was kind of some of the fondness of the show at the time. And then you knew, obviously, coming into the main event or the last half an hour or hour of the show, you know, you'd get your DDPs and your Hogans and your Nashes and your Halls and all that kind of thing, you know. But yeah, I think even WCW at the time, it was weird because, like, you know, they pinned it on Bischoff, you know what I mean? But like, how would you pin it on him if you're going to give him the wallet to spend? You know, and he was in a real battle at the time, remember? And this must have been tough for him as well, because like he thought he had beaten WWF. You know, there was no doubt about it, and all of a sudden the wave came back, and I don't think at that stage the fight was still in him to go to war again and try and win it, and it was hard. I think during that time as well, he had used so many of his secrets, if you like, or these things, that he had used up everything that he could possibly use. And I don't think reinventing it again would have had the same push or drive on it. So that's where I think it fell down. But I mean, in terms
go
ahead, Joe.
No, go continue. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think in terms of WCW, when they thought that the answer was taking Eric Bischoff out, who do they stroll in the door? Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara. And if they thought that Eric Bischoff was bad, I mean, this was lads who had been involved in the Attitude Era and somewhat took part in winning the battle back. But they had been driven demented as well by their own madness on the other side as well, to the point where they had to go, because they had gone totally off the Richter.
Well, Ed Ferrara, I think, is kind of in the same category as Kevin Nash, like just a hack. You know what I mean? I think Vince Russo was kind of the one. I think Ed Ferrara was the one that kind of was the one trying to just literally all he was trying to do was make personal jokes about, you know, JR and stuff like that. And, you know, he was the one that was writing all that kind of nasty crap.
Sensationalist Jerry Springer television.
Yeah. I think he was the one that was mainly, you know, that's why he isn't even known in wrestling anymore. So fuck Ed Ferrara. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it stems back to what Jay was saying about AEW, CW. You know, we see the same kind of, you know, Moxley bitterness and Cody bitterness kind of stuff coming through. It's not dissimilar to that Ed Ferrara era with Vince Russo, you know.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, so then
there was also a very strong neglect of the WCW talents that had got the product to the table. I mean, with the likes of they had some fucking great talent at the time that were seriously misused. Like, I mean, you still have fucking Flairs and they had Ricky Steamboat, they fucking Rick Rude in the earlier days pre-NWO. Great Bret Hart. They look the most underused talent that they bought for absolutely no fucking reason. He was a vanity project. They didn't buy him to use him. They bought him to take him away from the other fella. Like, it's ridiculous. But again, it was neglecting the talent and the structure that you already have in favor of I'm a new guy and I'm ushering in this new dawn and it's NWO and fucking. It was fun to watch for a while, but ultimately, as wrestling fans, we still want to watch good wrestling. I have no interest in sensationalist shit. I don't.
Yeah.
You know?
But just something you said earlier, Niall, about WCW pinning it on Bischoff. But when you have a company that's losing $5 million a month, you're desperate to find a scapegoat. And you know, he was president of the company. The book kind of stops at him really at the end of the day. So it's no wonder he got the sack when it was going performance.
The only thing in there is, Joe, that doesn't paint the full picture, because they weren't. WCW as a company weren't losing $5 million a month because they had absolutely no merchandise stream, which is obviously what Bischoff wanted. He wanted a merchandise stream, and Niall can tell you that, because he said the only thing that they would sell at vendors in the arenas was, I believe, Niall, it was the NWO shirts. That's it. Yeah. They had no merchandise stream.
He also wasn't just wrestling against Connecticut and its long tenured grip on the business post the territorial buyouts. He was in a war with his own executives from the company that he worked with. You can't win a war when you're fighting your own men. You can't.
His own people were fighting against him. Like, do you know what I mean? So he was tarnished. Like he was. There was a bullet on that man's head from the day that merger happened, and that's it, because they didn't want wrestling.
They didn't want them.
At
They
all.
didn't want the TV show. They didn't want pro wrestling, and that's what they had. One of the most successful shows was a pro wrestling show, and they didn't want it. I mean, you have to. There's so many facets in the loss of WCW, and I mean, it's easy to say that Vinnie Mac won the war in the end, but he didn't. WCW lost it itself. They lost to run themselves, then they lost to themselves.
They're self-imploded, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we often say in the business that timing shapes the history of this business without a shadow of a doubt. And the timing.
Like, I'd say Vince McMahon does count as lucky stars at times. I honestly do. I you know, for as great as the man is, I do believe that, you know, for the work that he's put in and stuff. But like, not everything Vince has done is original either. Like, as you know,
no, a lot of parallels. I mean, don't even stand there and try to tell me that DX wasn't a direct fucking rip-off of the juvenile humor coming out of NWA. Don't even tell me that Vinnie Mac wasn't a direct rip-off of the Eric Bischoff character. They were parodying everything that happened 6 months later, but doing it with a more structured company with the boss behind them. Exactly. WCW was wrestling itself and WWF.
Yeah, because sorry.
Go ahead, Joe.
Just like without the, Bischoff and the NWO, like, you didn't have the Attitude Era, because look at what WWE, the fucking corny, hokey bollocks they were doing before that, like
the Goon,
Max Moon, Man,
the Dumpster,
the Goon, Joe,
the Goon, all the nails, all these fucking dog shit gimmicks, like, you know what I mean? What they were pushing, like, it was pure cartoon muck, and then Bischoff and all that, they got a lot edgier, so it got eyes on it, and the WWE had to change, and they almost copied them in a way. As you said, you named out heaps of them that they just copied. They did their own version.
WCW ushered in the Attitude Era. There's no question about it. That wasn't something that came from Connecticut. I mean, we credited the one company simply because at the end of the day, he owns all the fucking business anyway. But it wasn't his. They just looked at what worked and just cut off the fat and left it for a half an hour at the end of his own shows, or bits in the middle, whilst also maintaining his other bits of the shows. WCW ushered in the Attitude Era. There's no question about it.
Yep. So we go back to Russo and Ferrara, and chaos ensues. And back in 2000, then Bischoff comes back in, returns as a writer, because obviously these executives that have come in are looking at Russo and Ferrara and going, "What in good luck?
What did we do?
Why
are you like this?"
Can I say one thing? I watched the whole first 2 months of Russo's first 2 months in tenure. And I have to say, I'm going to give Russo kudos here, because what he did was he basically told the likes of Flares and all to go home for a while, and Hogan, all these guys, and he wanted to bring in. I think he made Brett one of the prominent guys again. He made Sid one of the prominent guys again. He made Jeff Jarrett. He was actually trying to go, right, we actually have guys here that need to be fucking utilized.
Some fucking wrestlers on this show.
Some wrestlers on the show. He's like, so Brett should be a world champion. Why is he down there wrestling DDP in a fucking best of 7 series for a United States championship that doesn't mean anything? Do you know what I mean? And I've also, while we're on the subject of DDP, why isn't DDP up in the fucking title mix? Do you know what I mean? So Bischoff, man, I remember Halloween Havoc was his first pay-per-view. And he had Brett and Sting, I think, in a bit of a thing. And man, it was actually exciting. It was exciting. There was something new coming in. And Bischoff did have a little bit of a strategy. But the problem that Eric...
You mean Russo?
Russo. Sorry. The problem that Russo had is the exact same problem that Russo has always had. It's a month-to-month basis. After that, he didn't know what to do. So, right. We got the belt on Brett now, or we got the belt on Jarrett, or we got the belt on DDP. Oh, I don't know what to do next. I just thought that was great television last week.
So I'll put the belt on David Arquette.
Which isn't anybody's fault, not even David Arquette's. Talk about a man's career being destroyed for something that he was not going to refuse. Would you like to be a WCW champion? Yes, I would. Well, it's going to ruin your life. Give me the belt.
Yeah, that's
No.
fair, Jay.
Like, who would refuse it? You know?
Oh,
Yeah, but you're not as peewee as him, like.
Yeah, you know what? But I mean, if I was drunk on my own fame, I'd probably, stop getting out of bed and I'd drop a few pounds and I'd
Well,
probably get
you
into
probably
being a
could have
champ.
made a good. You probably could have made a good promo out of it, though, or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't doubt that.
No, he didn't know how to make it work. He didn't know what it was. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's, always been in the shadow of his own family members in a completely different industry, and he's offered this golden fucking ticket. He's like, I want to be famous too. I want to be the best Arquette at Christmas dinner. I want to be the champ.
Yeah, but
And bless him.
Sorry, let's not forget that David Arquette was he had it. There was a bit of a name to him. You know what I mean? Like, and he was a
Scream
massive
had just come out, wasn't it? The last Scream.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something?
And he was a massive wrestling fan, and he just fed off the crowd. He loved it.
He loves
He
the
did love
business.
it.
He loves.
He did love
He loves the business just as much as we do. Like,
Yeah, no, he does.
We have to remember that. You know what I mean? So it's easy to sit here and go, "Oh, David Arquette," and I do agree, Joe. It's a good point because now he's shite, and even his documentary, and he's going and trying to show. I mean, his documentaries will work as well. It's actually great though, because you've got wrestlers now getting annoyed about the David Arquette documentary, and they're now getting worked by the lad who supposedly couldn't work. It's fucking amazing. So David Arquette, if you ever happen to see this show, from me personally, Ian Kelly, well done, sir.
Good
Welcome
for you.
to the family.
I think as well at the time he was married to Courtney Cox as well, and we were kind of at the height of the Friends boom as well.
She used to be on the show, no, I remember. She used to be at the back. Yeah.
Picking up the checks.
Picking up fucking something else as well. Big fucking Kevin Nash coming out. Hey.
So
you ever seen a real man?
Nobody speaks. But in 2001, tries to buy the company. The offer is more or less sealed, and it's accepted. And then the network turns around and drops the programming, and he turns around and goes, "Well, without the programming, there is no WCW if there's no TV contract," and walks away from the deal and the trademarks and the contracts. And basically, you're left with a library that's valued at $3.5 million.
So, Noel, on that one then, right? Anybody that thinks Eric Bischoff doesn't love the wrestling business and just got into it for this or for that, yeah, he tries to fucking broker a deal to buy WCW himself. What does that tell you?
It's a serious pity that deal fell through. It really is.
It wasn't the only one, and I don't think it was a pity. Again, just the tinfoil hat situation. There was something very suspect business-wise coming up. I mean, it's come to light, and everybody spoke about it honestly.
No, but they knew about it, Jay. They knew about it.
This is what I mean. There was people at the Turner Network who were writing off bad debts from other shows and shoveling it into the WCW product.
It wasn't 5 million. Yeah, exactly. There was no.
But there was more than one offer. It was one of the other promoters. I don't know whether it was Vern or it was somebody else put a 70 million package together saying, "Here, look, the telly's not a problem. Give me the fucking tapes. Give me the roster. I can rebuild this." And they were like, "Yeah, no, we want to sell it to Vince for buttons." I mean, that's highly suspect. Like, that's insider trade.
That is very tinfoil hat, to be fair, because if you think about it, Jay, like, honest to God, like, I mean, Eric knew his product. That was his baby. Essentially, that was Eric Bischoff's baby. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I know there was many people, that helped mold it and whatnot. But they can blame Bischoff all he wants. He tried to get a conglomerate.
Yes, he tried to buy it. He tried to save the product. He tried to save jobs. He loved what he built, and he was real into it. Absolutely no question. What I'm saying from an executive perspective, it wasn't his business to begin with. He was an employee.
100%.
Now,
100%.
in corporate America, in a capitalist society, you've got a business which has a set value. Which, look, regardless of any other aspect of the previous fucking business operating, you've got a product which has 10 years of Ric Flair's wrestling history. The archives alone are worth a ridiculous amount of money. Even
worth the 10 million DVDs that they lost in the 2 months that they supposedly lost.
Right? You've got arguably the greatest worker the history has ever known. Now, I mean, that's debatable. We're not here to debate that either. Ric Flair's Ric Flair. He's top of the mountain. He is Space Mountain.
I agree.
You know what I mean? And buying those tapes for his work, his back catalogue alone, and getting everything else that was already in there, the fucking early worker, the Vanilla Midgets, the Ricky Steamboat stuff, the fucking Macho Man Randy Savage stuff, the Hogan stuff, all of this as a viable commodity. And people are offering money for it. I'm like, this is capitalist America. You've got a product. I want to buy it. Can I put this money on the table and have that product? No, we'd rather sell it to Vince.
There was no negotiation even.
None. They shut down every offer and accepted the Connecticut one.
That's insider trading. Didn't Ric Flair conjure up like a $2 million offer as well, because he got like a bit of a conglomerate together as well? Noel, you can clarify that. That is true, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, people wanted that. It should have at the very least gone to auction. And the money brought in from the selling of the history of the cassettes and the tapes and the back catalogue would have paid all the debts off, and they could have finished like.
Do you know what? It must be QAnon. It must be Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump's fault. He must have known Vince, and it was all them bloody QAnon people. They got that deal for Vince.
Well, like I said, where my tinfoil hat theory comes from is I think there was a nefarious line of business done there where something was executively criminally done over the years to siphon money in and out. WCW was the scapegoat.
It was hush.
Yes.
Exactly.
And they sold it to a man who accepted the consequences of the purchase. If this shit ever comes out, I have McDevitt on the case. Whereas anybody else be like, whoa, I bought this company and the paper trail leads to some serious corporate shit.
And Jerry McDevitt is probably known as one of the biggest pieces of shit lawyers. Like, do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying in a good way. Don't come for me, Jerry. Fuck you. I'm in Ireland. No, but you know what I mean? It's kind of one of those things. And Jay, you're actually 100% right, because, think about the New York scene. Do you know what I mean? It was always Vince and his boys, and don't forget Trump. I threw that in as a joke, but like Trump was always one of his right hand men too. They know exactly what they're getting.
Listen, they can make legal ramifications go away. That product, whatever was left of it in the end, was sold to a man who could deal with the fallout of something coming out, and also erase the paper trail of criminality behind it from fucking filtering or stealing or whatever corporate bullshit was going on in WCW at the time. A lot of men stood to lose out if it was sold to the wrong person and the truth came out. They sold it for peanuts. They sold that shit.
What do you think of that, Joe? What do you think of that, Joe, actually?
Well, to be honest, lads, I don't know much about the whole background stuff, but I do.
And we're only surmising, in fairness.
But Jay is 100% right. Vince McMahon got that for way less than he should have got it for.
Way less than other men were offering at the time.
Every single person knew at the time. They're like, how the hell did he get it for so little?
He got it for $2 million, wasn't it?
Yeah. Then it started to come out that Bischoff had gone in with a conglomerate, offered way more money.
Flair.
But I didn't know about the Flair one, but I heard about the.
Did you not know? And I heard Flair got a group of people. I think he went in at like 2.3 or something. They went in. Yeah, there was a couple of people that did job.
Yeah, there was somebody else as well. There was a. Sorry, forgive me, Joe. Go on.
No, I just know I don't have much to add. Just the fact that I do remember everyone kind of going, "How the hell did Vince McMahon get it for so little?" It was just a huge shock, absolute massive shock.
Like if you reduce the information to its basic brass bones, a company in America at a time when wrestling was shit hot had a product worth innumerable value on the auction block and decided not to earn 50 or 60 fucking million more than one of the other.
Man, it was worth at least double digits, and the first digits you're going into there is 10. It's worth at least 10 million.
Yeah.
To get it for 2 million, to get it for two, like that official narrative as well.
It was sold for
they
less.
They just wanted rid of it. How
when other men wanted it.
You just wanted rid of it. Yeah, and JR said this literally 3 weeks before the deal. Ric Flair had put in a $2.5 million offer. That's what it was.
Yeah, but you also have to remember at corporate level as well. There's a power struggle and there's a bitterness as well. And you have to remember those guys as well. There would have been a level of bitterness to the likes of Bischoff and Flair and guys like this in terms of these are the guys who they were pinning on bringing the company down. These were the guys.
I don't think so, Niall.
I think so. Well, Ian, you think
what? So they sell it to the biggest competition then?
No, but they were washing their hands of it anyway, so that didn't matter where it was going to.
Exactly, but then you wouldn't mind who you sold it to.
Well, you would in terms of if you had hired a guy for X amount of years, and you believed that guy had drove your business into the ground. Is that the guy who you're going to sell your business to?
Well, what about some of the other? What about some of the other companies then that tried to buy it for more money? It just seemed that I think Jay's onto something there. It just seemed that this deal was for Vince and Vince only.
Why would you refuse more money? Logically, in a country which is primarily built on capitalism and consumerism, why would you refuse more money?
Yeah, no,
I agree.
But in terms of more money, I don't believe they refuse more money. I mean, my belief solely
they did
speculation.
No, but it's public record.
It's on record.
Noel. It's on record. It's public record.
Yeah, but public record and financial accounting in the States go hand in hand.
Yeah, so but you're going into more tinfoil hat now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, but I'm talking from a purely speculation point of view. The same as I'm talking about in terms of the bid.
Joe's laughing at me for fucking pointing out some of the tinfoil.
I mean, if you're so shocked at what the price was at the time, then is there not a sense of truth or speculation in what we talk about?
I disagree with that point there now, Niall. I have to say because I don't. I think they wanted it right. The Time Warner merger, they wanted rid of wrestling. It didn't matter.
I honestly think also there's another aspect there, Ian. They also didn't want Ted to own his own network. There was a bloodless financial coup in his own company, a company he set up. His own under execs took him out of his own business at the same time.
Yes,
they sold a product which they had been using to funnel either A, bad debts, or B, they were skimming off the top.
Which is a disgrace in its own right, yeah.
On a ship, that's called mutiny.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't set up that business. They didn't set up.
Well, then do you think Niall's onto something then, Jay? Then, in the sense that maybe, right, just to play devil's advocate, maybe Niall's right there. Then, if they're thinking, all right, if we sell to Bischoff or if we sell to Flair, are they just going to get back in bed with Turner then because that's their boys? Do you know what I mean?
I can only speculate on what is glaringly obvious from a paranoid, delusional perspective. If we've got product A, and we know now, Bischoff has already come out and said he believes that the Turner Broadcasting Network was using WCW as a toilet, and they were running and writing off bad debts. They were, and basically saying, look, it's WCW's fault. When WCW was making money hand over fist, and for 83 weeks was the biggest draw on the whole network. 2, they refused the open market price on a product they had to sell, which would have recouped losses to a man who was willing to pay the smallest offer on the table, but accept the bullshit that came along with it. I think there was things in that deal that was a paper trail that led back to some nefarious fucking insider bullshit that meant if they sold it to anybody who was honest in its purchase, they would have turned around after 6 months with their lawyers going through it and trawling through it and going, where's all this money? Hang on, what's this bullshit? Why is all this money going here? This is some fucking criminal fucking executive shit going on. Whereas Vince was like, tell you what, I'll give you $2 million. I see that there's a lot of bullshit going on in this. I promise you, as a company, for the price of this archived footage, I will never open my mouth about how balls deep you are in some fucking bullshit, whatever that paper trail led.
You know what? And you know what? That conversation probably happened while they were wearing fucking robes in Bohemian Grove and all that shit, right?
I'd say they were more than likely wearing NWO t-shirts.
I'm only kidding.
but you also have to remember the real valuation of the purchase has never really come out, because you have to remember when he bought the company as well. Remember what he inherited, and we spoke about it last week on the Invasion show. I mean, there's a lot of these top stars sat at home, and those AOL Time Warner contracts were being honored. So where at what point do you value the purchase?
Well, to be honest with
we
you,
value the
Noel,
purchase
the
with the man who's
library, the
running.
library. I mean, Jay is right. The first thing I value there is right. Straight away, you're going right. You've got Jeff Jarrett and all these guys who are on regular contracts. They're on WCW contracts, right? They're not on AOL contracts. I get that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Don't have to buy all that. But I mean, the library in and of itself is worth the money, because Niall, I remember the first time I met you actually was just shortly after this sale, because we started, obviously me and Joe were doing the wrestling back then.
Yeah.
And I think that was 2002 anyway, was it? Or 2003? Was it? 2002?
2002, yeah.
Yeah. So 2002. There we go. I thought so. Like we were all like, you saw yourself. I went into your shop and literally I was like, holy fuck. And this is a God's honest truth. I went into your shop and I was like, I used to love going into VHS shops, video shops. That was my thing. Still love the idea of doing that today. If I could open up a VHS shop or just even a museum for my own self, I'd love it. But that's not the point. I go into you, and what did they have straight away in an instant? They had fucking Ric Flair documentaries. They had fucking everything on the go, ready. Ric Flair, Harley Race, everything. That alone, like, I mean, Vince, if he bought it for $2 million, like, he's literally
he probably recouped that money off the Flair DVD.
It's crazy, man.
Which he couldn't have put out without the purchase.
It's crazy, and then and it's funny because you see when he gets the Brett one. If you notice at the front of the Brett one, you saw that, Noel, you pointed that out to me. It says WWE and Bret Hart done this. Do you know what I mean? So they had ownership of everything else, but they didn't have ownership of the individuals. So even with Ric Flair, Ric Flair went to WWE once, didn't like it, and went back home. So this idea of Ric Flair as a WWE legend is kind of nonsense. Let's be real. He's a WCW NWA legend. He went there. It didn't work for him. He didn't like it. Didn't like the way they worked. Didn't like getting told by Macho Man Randy Savage that you have to write every move down that you're going to fucking do with me in the ring. And, and that's not, Savage's fault. That's no disrespect to Randy Savage. But, like, that's, you know what I mean? You can't please everyone all the time. You know what I mean? They didn't work together, hence why when the fucking what was it, the retirement match happened, he went straight off to TNA to make more money because he obviously had his tax bills. This love affair of like, oh, Ric Flair's a WWE man. No, he's not. Let's get that out of our heads. He's not in any way, shape, or form. Not even nearly. In fact, opposite.
He's a wrestling guy. Ric Flair's a Ric Flair guy. Yeah.
He's a Ric Flair guy. He is a fucking Atlanta, Georgia. He's a fucking Georgia guy. He is a NWA fucking guy. And I guarantee if NWA, please God, say a prayer, NWA could become as big as they could become, he would be back there and that would be it. He's a Crockett guy. Yeah. It's very simple.
Yeah, I think the point I was making is, like, if you purchase WCW, regardless of what we believe is the valuation on it, and let's suppose, Vince, for argument's sake, you paid $2 million or $3 million.
Yeah, you're buying the bullshit as well.
Yeah, the point that I'm making in terms of, say, Sting, when you pay someone a salary, you expect someone to provide you, the employment or the work you want them to do. So if those wrestlers sit at home and you honor those contracts, that's a cost of buying that business. It's not a salary cost because they don't work for you. They're sitting at home. And most of the top guys at that time, if you remember, they were all sitting at home, which is what we alluded to last week on the Invasion show, where those guys didn't come in time to really make the Invasion angle.
But that's because Vince didn't even negotiate with those boys, though, Noel. Yeah. So that shows you that Vince had no intention of making this the right thing at all.
No, but what I'm saying to you is, in terms of when you look at the cost of purchasing that business, you have to equate in the cost as well that came along. As Jay says, the bullshit that came along with it as well has to be apportioned as part of the cost.
Oh yeah,
now,
no, but the
now how you but what I'm saying is how you selectively account for it. That's your own business in terms of the legalities of accounting. But in terms of the reality of the purchase and in terms of the value,
so you think WCW was only worth 2 million then? If you take away,
what I'm saying is
what I'm saying is 2 million plus the caveat of, we'll say, 100 million on wage contracts that you have to honor, because now you're the new owner. You've got to respect anything that was signed.
Yeah, okay, I get you.
So when we sit here and we say Vince bought this for a snip, and we have speculation and all that kind of thing, you have to go back and look at all the other costs that came along with the AOL Time Warner contracts and all that other stuff.
True.
And then you suddenly arrive
to a degree.
To a degree.
No, sorry. Vince didn't pay a dime on any of that. He didn't buy the AOL.
But what I'm talking about in terms of the effect it had on his business, in terms of those guys not coming in and the crash of the invasion.
That's his own fault. That's because he's a retard, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not buying people.
Well, he was then anyway. He was a retard then.
You're buying a brand.
From a business perspective, again, we have to reduce things down.
I'll tell you what my opinion on this is. Vince bought that purely for one reason and one reason only. Didn't care about any of the contracts, didn't care about anything else other than one fucking reason.
To bury them.
The video library and to bury them.
12 years of tape.
He had the video library, lads.
Yeah.
That is worth 2 million alone.
Yeah, half of his network.
And that's only my opinion, lads. I'm just saying, I'm not shitting.
No, it's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth. You're not wrong. But again, it's I'm not arguing with anybody here. When I say, from my perspective, mentally, I have to understand something right now. Towards the end, there was so much turmoil in the business above the office, above Eric's. We've always been led to believe that Eric was the top C in the office. He was the Vince McMahon character when he fucking wasn't. There was like an executive decisions above him, which affected him to the point where they took his whole budget away, but expected him to maintain his popularity on TV. Now, there were several other factors as well. You had some unique contracts drawn up, which will never be seen in pro wrestling again. The likes of the hierarchy of the NWO meeting and matching every wrestler who was contracted to WCW after they had signed, which basically meant if I signed Bret Hart for $3 million a year, if them men weren't on $3 million previous, now they are. Like, that's some ludicrous bad business. But there was also other shit involved. WCW was used as a scapegoat for the shenanigans that were going on from an executive perspective, and I can't say for 100% sure there were criminal aspects financially in the structure of Turner at the time, but they ran a mutiny which got rid of their own boss, the name of the fucking company, and reduced him to an executive vice president with no decision-making powers. They sold on the open market a product which had a value way higher than it's fucking what it was sold for, while simultaneously refusing higher bids. In any business in the world, if somebody offers you a tenner for something and you say no, I want to sell it to this guy for $2 quid,
just checked there.
You failed.
I just checked there earlier for you, Jay, when you were talking about that and the projected value of WCW without the contracts, just in terms of the network value, it was up to 45 million.
Yes. Now, like I said, in any
that makes sense, though, right? That makes sense. Yeah.
In any business in the world, if you're selling a product for €10 and somebody offers you €2 for that product and it costs you €6 to make, you've failed. That's bad
That's on
business.
The north side, Jay. That's on the north side.
Yeah, listen, I'm trying to dumb it down so we can understand this. Sometimes you can convolute a discussion with too much fucking hyperbole and, the vernacular verbosity of the situation. It doesn't matter. They sold it for $2 million. It was 10 years or 12 years of Ric Flair's fucking professional work was sold for nothing.
That's 43 million less. That's 43 million less than what it should have went for.
Yes, that's criminal. That's insider trading. That's even that in itself. They wanted it to go away. They didn't want it to.
I suppose, like, Niall, for you, like, without talking too much about the deal itself, like, in terms of Eric Bischoff, like, I mean, it's so easy, like, for me, and I've read this stuff as well with him as of you, because I think I bought the fucking book in your shop anyway. So.
That's not his signature. That's yours.
I bought the book. I know it wasn't signed.
Selling books creates cash.
Hard work.
But it's. I mean, I don't know. I think Eric Bischoff was a credit to the business. I think the fact, and let's talk about him when he came back to WWE. You know what I mean?
Well, we're going to get on that right after we take a little short break. We're going to get into his WWE career. But I would leave it with the thoughts that basically, I do think he gets a hard deal in relation to WCW, but I don't think he's blameless either.
No, I'd agree with that. That's fair.
No, he fell in love with his Bischoff persona,
So when we come back, we'll be talking Eric Bischoff and WWE. And we're back, and we're going to begin the Bischoff WWE era. So, lads, 2002 rolls around, and there's great build up to this. They're going to announce the Raw general manager. And nobody, I don't think, expected who walked out on the stage that night to walk out on the stage. Vince McMahon in the ring announces that the Raw general manager is none other than Eric Bischoff. And
it's one of those moments in time, isn't it?
Swerve of swerves.
I think the most shocking part of it was the fact that what seemed to be a very loving hug between the two of them, just that blew my mind completely. That
it was a real warm embrace. It was and Eric was basically masked behind to the building and basically was told to walk through the building. And he said he knew some people wanted to smack him in the head, but he was like, I trusted my own self-defense skills that I didn't give a fuck. And that's kind of why I love Eric Bischoff. You know what I mean? It was
he's a brazen bastard, isn't he? He's
arrogant in a good way. I like that.
He's the lad who was in your class in school who always deserved a hiding but never got it.
And what?
And then if you tried to do it, he'd probably do some move on you and fucking snap your arm back, and you'd be like, "Yeah, bollocks! How'd you know that?" You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So
I would say half that locker room that night. Anybody who didn't know was like, "Oh, not again, not again. Why am I back here? Not again."
So he comes in. And he's attributed to some of the ideas that he brought along. So if you remember back to that time, lads, we had the Raw Roulette. And we also had the Elimination Chamber, which are attributed to him. Jay, what was your thinking back then when he came in?
Again, the last 7 years not happened. I mean, as an older man now, I realise and appreciate that when you put it up to Vinnie Mac, you earn his respect regardless of what he'll say about you in front of the media. He likes two dogs chewing on the same bone. He loves the fucking competition. He thrives under adversity, and he loves fucking with us. And can you think of a bigger fuck you guys than Eric Bischoff walking into a company after he bought it? We should have seen it coming, but again, hindsight is 2020. Do you know what I mean? It's only now, after a lifetime of the man, we're finally getting a picture of his complete life, and we're like, "Yeah, thanks, Vince. Thanks for working us again, you fuck."
It was nearly like the biggest two fingers even to the locker room that he could have given them, isn't it? When you think about it, to see him hugging Bischoff in the ring and everything, it was just like, oh my god.
Like old friends, like old pals. Yeah. Welcome home, but this was never your home. Would you like my wife?
Can you imagine next Monday on Raw if Vince announced a new general manager and it was Tony Khan and they were hugging in the middle of the ring? It's just craziness. But yeah.
No, do you know? No, I'll tell you why I can't imagine that.
Go on. See the way he jumped off that bottle of beer so quick. He had it ready to go.
He nearly choked.
Go on. The hate is real.
See, Joe, this is for you, American Pale Ale. I'm allowed to say that, haven't I?
So that's where your tax dollars are going, yeah.
Do you know why? Do you know why? Because Tony Khan hasn't achieved anything yet. That's why.
I don't know. He's got a lot of men paid. Do you know what I mean? Regardless.
Oh, well, listen. No, I mean, in the wrestling business, listen. Tony Khan's definitely someone I'd love to have a conversation with. I mean, absolutely. I think the guy. I love his vision.
I don't think we'd have much to talk to with Tony Khan. I mean, he
clearly
doesn't understand pro wrestling.
I love his vision.
You can talk to him about that American football shit, but I'd be like, so, Tony, do you like milk?
I know, but like you kind of look at like their NFL team are kind of shitty at the moment as well, according to Dynamo
Well, it's a
Podcast
shitty
Network.
sport, you know.
Fulham aren't doing great; they're getting relegated. So it's like, what are the Cans really doing?
Not paying tax.
I don't know.
Not paying tax.
I don't know. I'd be the flip side of that. I think we'd actually have a lot to say to him.
Oh, I would have a lot to say to him, but it wouldn't be a recorded call though.
No, I'm with you on that, Niall. I think, look, I know, I think Ian gets a lot of backlash about fucking Khan hate, but I don't think Ian hates Tony Khan. I think
No, I don't.
I think Ian is frustrated by AEW. He wants AEW, like myself. He wants AEW to succeed so badly that it actually gets him emotional, and sometimes that emotion comes across as anger and hatred.
We didn't love it, would we be sitting here?
And to be honest with you, Joe knows me. Like, I mean, Joe knows me probably longer than any man on this show, and that's actually, to be honest with you, what he just said there is 100% the truth. It's
we know. We just like winding you up.
Oh, well, I don't mind. I wasn't even wound up, to be honest with you. I was only wound up by thinking of, God damn it, Can. Let me hire me. I'll do something for you.
If
he hired me as his booker, give me the pencil, Tony. Put me in the fucking corner of the room and just let me write some shit and just take it.
I got an idea for you, kid.
They won't even know I was here. Yeah, just give me a pack of cigarettes.
I just think with Ian, his passion sometimes can come across as I said, hatred and anger, and I think people can pick it up wrong. But I think that's all it is. He's just so passionate and wants AEW to be, as big, if not bigger than WWE, if they can be.
Absolutely.
I don't think they can be, but I think I do think Ian thinks that they could be doing a lot better and be bigger than they are. But as I said, can come across as a bit pissed off and angry about the whole thing. But it's just that he's just
fair, absolutely fair.
Always the heel, never the face.
Never.
So then he heads off into a load of feuds. He feuds with Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's what tag team partners are for. Heads off.
You know it, baby.
Stone Cold.
Now we're back on fucking track.
Shane McMahon, John Cena, no less, has a feud with SmackDown General Manager Stephanie McMahon. Has a feud with Extreme Championship Wrestling owner Paul Heyman. And culminates kind of with a storyline, a kayfabe storyline about his nephew Eugene, who ends up shaving his head.
Who is obviously, he's meant to be a little bit funny, like, yeah.
Yeah, and clearly not Bischoff's nephew. Culminates with some disdain for Cena in terms of his firing. And then we arrive at the taking out of the trash. Joe, talk to me about that time in WWE.
You did mention The Office with Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I did. I mentioned Stone Cold first, actually.
But that was actually one of the best parts, though.
Well, I was about to go to you guys to flesh out the bones of this carcass.
Yeah, I mean,
give me something to work with.
For me, like the Stone Cold Steve Austin thing, I thought that dynamic was absolutely perfect. No, did anyone else? I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Remember the Stone Cold had just got off the DUI and apparently he wasn't allowed to drink anymore. And what did they do next week on Raw? Fill the whole office up with cases of beer. And Austin's like, Eric comes in and goes, "What are you doing in my office?" He's like, "It's my office, Eric. It's my office." It's like just brilliant fucking. I mean, I have to say, guys, as great as our podcast is, I think WWE are doing amazing jobs with Stone Cold podcast, even with But just to say, I haven't seen. There's so much great history there. Like Noel kind of went through so many things there, and rightly so. Just remember the office being filled with beer. You know, that's obviously because me and Jay and Joe fucking up. We're all dipsos. We're Irish, so
Still dream of that office.
yeah, we're all just thinking of the beer, like, and having a happy ending.
Probably drank 7 of those offices in the last 10 years, but I still dream of that office.
But you know, it's. I just thought that was a great program. I think the stuff that he done, but I have to say, Niall, to go back to your point and how it all ended, and him getting thrown in a dump truck, and him accepting that and just going, yeah, I'll just ride off into the sunset. That shows you how professional that man is, I think.
Well, he was getting paid a fair chunk of money to get it done as well.
He was always getting paid a fair chunk of money, but he's always been professional too.
Yeah, no, yeah, he has always put a professional face on everything, even when he didn't agree with what might have been going on. He always did go along with it, and put his there's a lot to be said about that. There's plenty of other guys that I can think of within the wrestling business that you can see when they're not interested.
Yeah,
and you know, and when they're and it really takes away from it when they're not interested. And the likes, you know, someone like Bischoff that, oh, I'm getting thrown into a dump truck. Fine, let's do this. Like, you know, he always went full throttle with it, like, or whatever needed to be done. Like,
yeah, well, I think he would have known somewhere down the line that it was going to culminate in something like this, because I mean, he had obviously had visibility of how the WCW stars were treated when they came in anyway. So he would have known that Vince would have brought him in and it was all hugs and smiles and, yeah, you're my man and all this kind of thing for a while. But ultimately it would end with Vince having the last laugh, as it always does.
And then they screw him then, obviously, with the job title. I mean, look, that little Cruella DeVille looking motherfucker now at some point is going to have a come to Jesus meeting as well himself, isn't he? You know who I'm talking about. With his fucking lipstick and all. Like, come on. I can't really. It's like a dog that loses its voice. All right, I played the fifth.
Okay.
So where were we, host?
We're gonna go on to 2006, where he writes a book.
Bombshell tonight.
Aptly named "Controversy Creates Cash."
Yes, it does. And so does Dynamo.
Yeah. And the funny thing about this time is he was actually quite against writing the book at the time, and he felt that the book was most of these books that were being written, wrestling books, where most are bitter, self-serving revisionist history at best.
Yeah.
And he wasn't overly interested in doing it until he probably signed the check. And he reckons that most of them as well are monuments to the bullshit at their worst. So what a comment about book writing in terms of the business.
He'd probably read Hogan and Flair's books, to be honest with you.
That's fair. I'll give you that, Jay.
Fucking Arns, who was wrote as a work. Yeah, that's gonna read real well in 15 years.
No, it doesn't.
No, it didn't read well to begin with.
So through 2006, 2007, he makes a couple of sporadic appearances, but nothing major, just sort of throwaway kind of stuff, really. Joe, this is where we enter the period that you're most in tune with, along with myself. 2010 to 2014. We enter the era of Monday Night Impact and total non-stop action.
Thankfully, of the 7 people who were watching it at the time, we have one of them here tonight.
You have two of them here. You have 2 of them here tonight.
Oh, well, yeah. Listen, it was business for you. It was a tax write-off.
Jay, I'm at the freeing up a calendar. Jay, do you want to ring me during this? Yeah.
Call me.
Premieres on the 4th of January 2010, along with his good buddy Hulk Hogan, where they both negotiated contracts to come into TNA and formed an alliance to take over and rebuild the franchise.
And all they did was fuck it. They did not rebuild it.
This is when I started hating Hulk Hogan, lads. Being honest with you. Because and Jay, like as long as I've known all of you, Jay, I fought you on this so many fucking times over a 20-year period now, actually.
Those conversations were hard on my heart to begin with. A man has to see for himself.
I'm sure they were. I'm sure. And they were hard on my heart initially too. But then when I saw the fucking thing with TNA, I remember me, do you know what? God's honest truth, and you boys know my dad, well, Joe does. Mick comes in and goes, here's a bit of wrestling on Bravo or something. Do you know what I mean? It was on one of those gimmick channels. And, you know, the old Sky, like it was on one of those gimmick channels. You're going like, all right, yeah, fuck it. And I went, it even looks fucking cheap. You know what I mean? Looks cheap. And I suppose like people probably don't know what I mean by that, but I guess you guys know what I mean. It looks cheap. When it's in a studio, right? If you're trying to compete with the main man, with the old man, especially, unless it's in a fucking arena, it doesn't look good.
And that is a problem that TNA had when they were when they were coming up and they were doing the little small studio stuff. It was fine, and they were kicking ass with the X Division. They were building their own stars, and it was going fantastic.
Yeah.
But when Bischoff and Hogan came in, and they got the idea into their heads that they could compete with the big boys when they really were still a minnow. Yeah, we have to be honest. Like as much as I love,
absolutely,
as much as I love TNA and Impact Wrestling, they were a minnow and still are a minnow compared to WWE. And to think, whichever one or two of them it was that thought it was a good idea to start the Monday Night Wars again.
Insane.
Was lunacy. And now the only good thing that came out of it was that WWE actually got a little bit better when TNA moved to Monday nights, because it was a tiny bit of competition, but they actually did improve a small bit. But TNA, like as I said, it's still paying. I've said this before in another podcast. It's still paying for that to this day.
It's never recovered. It's got a Hulk Hogan hangover.
Yeah, it's never fully recovered. It's like as I said, what they're doing now is actually really good, but everyone, like people still associate it with that time period when it was utter dog shit, and that's, I don't think that's fair, because I think if people started watching it now, they'd find that it's a completely different product. It's vastly different to what it was, and it's a hell of a lot better for it. It kind of knows where it is now. And it's doing its own thing. It's not making big waves or anything like that.
It's a testament to it, Joe, that it's still going. There's somebody in there who loves it, and they're still tipping away.
I like that.
I do. Look here. Listen, perseverance is its own reward in anything. Sooner or later, you will come back into vogue. But the things that fucking Hogan and Bischoff undid was everything that TNA had that was going for it, even down to something as simple as the cosmetic aspect of the different ring.
Sorry, lads. I just want to mention as well, like we're throwing all the blame on Hogan and there's a certain Russo as well that was involved. That was also, in fact, I would say that was far more detrimental.
Well, and you have to remember
Bischoff.
You have to remember, I think it was Spike TV they were on at the time, and they said they said Russo has nothing to do with this, and they said no, he's absolutely nothing to do with it.
And the emails came out with Dixie Carter, exactly.
He was in the background on the quiet doing it. But
is Dixie Carter still involved, Joe? Is she, or?
Oh God, no,
she owns it, isn't she?
No,
she's long gone. She don't own it anymore.
No, long gone. She's long.
Do you know what, Joe? I'm gonna watch TNA tomorrow for you.
You should, man. But it's called Impact.
I refused to watch it while it was under that little fucking.
Oh, it's donkeys years away.
Whatever. I'm not going to say any bad words. I refused to watch it while it was under her reign. So I will 100% watch tomorrow. Yeah,
but when you had the likes of Bischoff and Hogan there, you also had Mick Foley, you had Ric Flair, Kevin Nash was there. You know what I mean? Yeah, you had these guys that that were literally there to pick up a paycheck.
But doesn't that prove to you that, like, your Mick Foley that you think is, such a nice guy? He's not really. He's just, he doesn't care about that's what you need, Bischoffs.
But Mick Foley did wrestle, you know what I mean? But you had Kevin Nash who couldn't do anything. His knees were shot. You had Hogan that was, throwing his weight around and being a bit of dick. Like you did have Sting and Angle there, who were
Sting worked his arse off in that company.
I was just about to say those two boys were kicking a lot of ass.
Yeah, they were.
And if you
The
listen
Dudleys
to
were there as well, doing very good shit.
Dudleys were there
weren't
kicking
they?
ass as well.
Yeah,
the
Shitty machine guns. They had a hell of a roster at one stage.
But if you listen,
didn't Booker T go as well for a little while?
But if you listen to interviews with the likes of AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, the stars that TNA kind of built. If you listen to interviews with them, they all talk about how Sting and Angle were amazing to work with, and they took their ideas on board. They helped them flesh out ideas and all this kind of crap. They were really open to do stuff, but they never mentioned the likes of Hogan and all that and Nash. They don't get mentioned because they probably didn't help them all that much, because, as I said, they were there to pick up a paycheck most of the time.
Yeah, the last half hour of programming.
Yeah, it was a pity, because, as I said, I know Niall was a big fan at the time as well, and for my own probably sins, I remained a fan, and I went through some horrible years.
I'd say so. Give it a chance, lads.
I like that. I like that,
Joe.
Joe. That was your version of your football team, though. I like that. You know what I mean? It was like, and now you've got them. They're kind of cross branding with AEW, right?
Yeah, they're doing a bit there, and they're also
so you're looking forward to the future.
Yeah, they're also in with New Japan, because the Good Brothers are traveling across, and FinJuice just won the Impact Tag titles, and they're in FinJuice. It's Juice Robinson and Finley.
And Finley's kids. Yeah,
they're in New Japan as well. They actually just brought the belts with them to New Japan to show them off. So it's great to see that kind of stuff. Because also under that Bischoff, I'm pretty sure it was under the Bischoff Hogan era. Niall, you could correct me on this. When they got the likes of Shinsuke Nakamura and Okada, they had that deal with New Japan. Was that around then? Was it?
That's right, yeah.
He always done that. He done that in that's. Do you remember Misaharo? What was his name? Misaharo Chihuahua. What was his name? Noel. Misahara Chara or something. His name was. Remember your man that used to wear like the bulletproof vest back in the 90s in WCW as well. Bischoff always had those deals with New Japan. Do you remember?
Yeah. Well, I know they remember the strong presence.
Yeah, Scott Norton. Remember, he used to bring Scott Norton over all the time as well.
Yeah.
Because he'd always have the big boys, and he'd make sure that he had these kind of talent trades. That's how we had Yoshin Thunder Liger on a lot of the WCW shows.
Yeah. But I mean, but Impact at the time as well with New Japan, they used to run those, the World Cups, and they used to run the Global Impact Wars and all that kind of stuff, and all that was those kind of events were always really cool. They were
some serious purist wrestling fucking fandom shit.
Yeah, I remember Christian went over at one stage, didn't he, as well? And the event was unbelievable. Like, it was nearly, your Wrestle Kingdom type of thing, you know what I mean? But you had a lot of imports and stuff like that. The Machine Guns went over there a few times. Outstanding tag matches over there. Unbelievable. And even Angle went over. And I mean, Angle, I think on one of those tours, wasn't that when he captured the IWGP belt and stuff like that and all? So,
yeah, sure, he wrestled Brock over there as well.
Yeah, absolutely outstanding.
Anyone that hasn't seen that match, by the way, please go and watch it.
Yeah.
Angle is, he's going to have a show of his own anyway, so.
Yeah.
But sorry, just to elaborate on that New Japan thing, if you don't mind, lads, for a second. Just that actually, TNA/Impact, they actually ended up fucking that up, because when the Japanese guys came to America, they didn't put them over. They just crushed them. So they had the likes of Shinsuke Nakamura wrestled for them a couple of times. I think he lost pretty much every time. And they had Okada as well, who lost pretty much all the time. And New Japan just got pissed off and said, why are we sending some of our best talent to America to get them fucking shit on all the time? So they ended up fucking it up. But when it did go well, it was fucking great.
I'd say that was Hogan, to be fair.
I don't know.
That's not going to work for me, bro.
But I know when Hogan was in TNA, he had a lot of sway, a huge amount of sway.
Hogan has had too much sway in the wrestling industry. Look, we all know Hogan is good at. Listen, and I think even Jay Kennedy will agree with me on this. When Hogan does his job and shuts the fuck up and gets in bell to bell and does a match with the Warrior or there was a match with fucking The Rock, you know, Hogan bell to bell is not a problem. That's the problem. The real problem is in the fucking background.
The real problem with Hogan is if you don't keep him on a short fucking leash, he is destructive. He believes his own bullshit. And there's only one hand on the planet who knows how to hold that dog in rein. And his name is McMahon, the man who made it.
How you doing, kid?
Everywhere else, anything he touches turns to fucking ash. I mean, as much as I have an issue with AEW, CW right now, the fact that they've refused any assistance or even looking at him is possibly one of the best business moves they can do.
That was purely for you know, kudos things, because they jumped on the whole fucking racist thing. You know, that's all they did. Like, that
was bullshit. We know. As much as I hate him, I don't believe that's a true thing.
Which I know I do 100%, because you know, if Hogan offered his fucking services properly to them, they would. Tony Khan would be like, well, we can at least have a conversation. That's a fact. They jumped on.
I don't believe so.
I do, and Niall's nodding with me, and he believes so too.
No, I'm with Jay on this one. I think they want to stay well away from. They don't want to.
They learned from TNA's example.
I was just going to say they don't want to fall into that fucking pit that TNA did. I know there are elements of what they're doing that are.
Hogan is bigger than their whole show. The brand of Hulk Hogan is bigger than AEW. It's a fact.
Yeah, most of the companies he's worked for, he sank.
He has.
Yeah, but yet here we are, and he's still the biggest fucking superstar of all time.
Yeah, so, relevance. Yeah, no, we can talk about this all day.
I agree with that. Yeah. No, I agree with both of you. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying.
When Hogan rolls in, let me give you my Hall of Fame ring, Abyss. You just stank the whole place out with your bullshit. Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry. Like, just saying that, like, Tony Khan's really not doing much of a better job. So.
Yeah, but he's trying to do it a different way, and.
What, like by doing barbed wire exploding fucking pole matches? Yeah, that's the way.
I'm not. Oh yeah, listen.
That's the way to do it.
I am not in any fucking leap of the imagination saying that AEW is doing it right. I have a serious problem with them. They stole 3.5 hours of my life there a couple of weeks ago, and
maybe Hogan could fix this one.
Yeah, if they put him in the ring with Scotty Steiner, then maybe I'll fucking watch.
At least at a main event level, just let him have a main event with someone, and it might work, because it'd be much better than looking at jazz hands and fucking Baldy Conscience.
I choose not to watch it anyway.
To a load of fake fucking fireworks.
I choose it not to watch it anyway, and if Hogan was on it, if it's technically possible, I'd watch it even less. I'd probably download their shows just so I could delete them at home. That's how.
Don't worry, Jay. You're not far from me. I'd sneak into your room and be like,
play AEW shows to me while asleep, so I wake up all AEW for it. No, yeah, look. They are running a terrible product right now, but we'll get there, and so will they. Trial and error. They're pandering to a crowd who doesn't know what they want, but know how to.
They're only 2 years old, in fairness. So I keep telling myself.
Yeah, they're minnows, and we want them to win.
Keep telling myself that.
And
one day, I know Tony Khan is going to make the big boy decision, and he's going to say, right, I'm going to get such and such from the back, and he's going to get that GM that he needs. You know what I mean? And he's going to be the guy. That's my hope. And you know what? I'm still rooting for him until that point. If we get 5 years in, fuck that. I'm calling Hogan, and he's going.
Bollocks. God, give it to Dustin before I give it to anybody else.
He's going in. Hogan and Bischoff are going in. If they've 3 years left. And I think Joe's laughing there because he knows I'll fucking try and make the call.
Anyway, where are we? TNA.
Yeah. We got away with ourselves there.
About as relevant as we were 2 minutes ago. So yeah, TNA.
Yeah. Same conversation, different letters.
Yeah. So Hogan destroyed everything that he touched. Okay.
No, that's not true, Joe or Niall. I never said that.
I said everything outside WWF turned to ash in the hands of Hogan.
I love Hogan. Wrong. Hogan actually is responsible. Hogan is actually responsible for two. He's responsible for all of us enjoying wrestling. Actually, to be fair,
no, he isn't. But
he is, yep. He's
he?
responsible for rock and wrestling, and he's also responsible for the rejuvenation of pro wrestling in the 1998. Continuing
the
on.
fact that I have been able
Noel,
to
mute
look
him.
around Hogan for the last 20 odd fucking years is a
And you
testament
love him.
to when the sport is done right, how amazing it can be. And usually he is not involved.
Well, I'll tell you what, he gave your boy his best match of all time.
No, he didn't. He didn't. It's not even in my top 3 Warrior matches.
Well, I actually think it's probably the best WrestleMania match of all time, personally.
From a business perspective, it did more for the structure and getting men paid, and like a
Joe's
almost.
nodding at me there, and I'm going, no, I think it is the
Look,
best.
I'm not disagreeing, man. I'm not
story.
disagreeing. But if you're saying to me that Hogan versus Warrior was better than Hogan versus Rude when Rude won the strap off, the IC strap off Warrior, preposterous. And then Hogan or Warrior versus Macho Man, that's way better than Hogan.
No,
versus
I said I think it's the best Mania match of all time purely because you had 2 baby faces. That's why I love it.
It was an apex match. I'm not.
I think the
not
story
questioning
and the
that.
narrative. I think the narrative that they told and that Hogan was able to go in this way. For me, it's just the way it is. I don't.
When he
think
wants to work, he can be the greatest in the world.
Yep.
Unfortunately, that's rare.
Now, Noel, you tell us how Hogan.
Well, I'm just going to say there wouldn't have been any WrestleMania 6 if there wasn't 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, my man.
But yeah, so
he's right, you know, Tito Santana has an awful lot to do with it.
So we'll move on to October 2000.
Not only did he steal his look and his moveset, he also stole his music. Yes. He's like the magpie of pro wrestling. What you got there, brother? It's working. I'm going to take that.
You only told us last week your favorite one was when he was in the black and white.
Well, yeah. But within relevance to degree. It was his best work. But listen, I haven't set the bar very high on him.
I think we have an NWO situation going on here, Joe, where Noel is coming over to us.
But I will say this in relation to something that I said last week. How fucking dare he write and scroll those fucking letters over something as beautiful as that belt, that disrespectful, gelatinous, hot dog looking piece of shit.
And you bought it.
Because he knew that I had kids to send to college. It's all good.
Exactly. That's it. And he also was good enough to give Noel his fucking surname.
Did we not only last week have a discussion about Hogan and Rock?
Listen, come on. It's the greatest.
Did I not speak honestly? Have I not been honest in every appraisal of the man? He has given wrestling some great moments, but he is not the man the business invests in.
He is.
Look,
he isn't.
There's nothing wrong with wanting a bigger piece of the pie.
Hogan is the greatest. It's a fact.
If he was the greatest, why did he make more money off banging his mate's wife than he did off pro wrestling?
Well, no, he didn't. You know that.
Oh, did he not? No,
he did.
He made
Get
more.
Into your research.
No, he made more. No, he made more money off Gawker writing about the fact that he banged his mate's wife.
So we've just, okay, fair enough. You said what I said, but with different words. Well, let me tell you something, brother.
Let's get back on track here now that we've established that Hogan was the greatest.
When it comes crashing down and it hurts inside.
Lads,
it's a great tune, though.
It's a great tune. And it wasn't his.
And it's Cyndi Lauper singing in the background as well.
Not in question.
Wait till you see the graphics incoming on this section.
Oh, this is going to be great.
Oh my God, it's going to be Gawker footage, isn't it? A little tiny Hogan with his fucking tongue bikini.
You're actually going to get real hot dogs this time, Jay. Real hot dogs.
It won't be Hogan, it'll be Terry Bollea. October
6 inches of the truth.
Leave the man alone, will you?
No.
October 2013. Bischoff is sent home by TNA and told to sit out the remainder of his contract till early 2014, and then it ended up in an unpaid salary lawsuit. When asked about his positive memories during his time with TNA, he stated, first of all, that he didn't have any. in 2019,
Oof.
2019, well, you hear this, Bischoff said of his TNA run, for the most part, it is very regrettable. And looking back, I wished I wouldn't have done it with one or two exceptions. So there you go. So that was
was one of them Hogan?
No, that was RVD, Jay. Leave Hogan alone.
No, I can't imagine anything to do with Bischoff and Hogan is regrettable, seeing as they nearly negotiate as a couple.
They do.
They're only- they're a step
almost
away
that's
from getting off,
this
aren't they?
stage. At this stage, Hogan and Bischoff is like Niall Hogan and Dynamo. Do you know? It's like I'm getting questions going, hey, how's Niall? Is he okay? Is he on Facebook? I'm like, listen, well, do you know what? We're getting married next week. Do you want to know that?
It's only when you lose something you realise how much you miss it.
It's very true. Very true.
2016 returns to WWE. Of course, we get the DVD release. Most of them come back for a DVD release, which actually was a very good DVD, in fairness. Proceeds to get involved, and I think he helped in terms of executive power, in terms of the Fox deal, which was kind of a bit of a disaster.
It was actually, yeah.
And then it's announced, obviously, that he's going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame coming up next week, 2021 class of Hall of Fame.
I think it's perfect. I was just going to say, because I have a podcast recorded that I've done with the great Finlay Martin, of course, and we talked about the
Hey, Finlay.
Yeah. In fairness, he actually asked at the end of the show, can he come back on next month after Mania? And I said, absolutely, he can.
Absolutely.
So he wants to come back on next month. But we had a conversation about the Hall of Fame inductees and stuff like that, and we were talking about who should induct them and stuff like that, and we both agreed 100% that Eric Bischoff deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, for me, there is absolutely zero doubt. Is it going to be Hogan that inducts him in? I hope so, purely for that narrative, because I do believe that that's who should induct.
I think it's inevitable with him being announced as one of the co-hosts of
yeah, Mania. I mean, and Jay, I mean, I'm sure you would even agree with that. I think that's without a doubt. I think it would, and I hope Hogan does a good job. And I'm with I do hope Hogan does a good job and actually doesn't just talk about himself and does talk about the man that's going into the fucking Hall of Fame, which I'm sure he will. But without a shadow of a doubt, for me, I can bow out now on this and leave it over to you boys and say wholeheartedly, hand on heart, I believe that Eric Bischoff, without a shadow of a doubt, is one of the best people in modern times to enter the business and deserves every fucking second of adulation that he gets from being in the Hall of Fame. So
yeah, I think we'd all agree with that. But just to let you know, we're not finished yet, because the man makes a couple of appearances in our favorite promotion.
We know you, brother.
He appeared in AEW.
That don't work for me.
And he moderated a debate between Chris Jericho and our good friend Orange Cassidy, Mr. Pockets.
I've seen that, Mr. fucking Applesauce, yeah.
That's it, yeah. And he referred to his appearance as a cameo and that he hadn't signed for the promotion. Obviously, he had gotten the phone call about picking up that glorious ring.
But WWE, I don't think WWE hold that against you too much now, because I've seen, because you remember like when they started off, Bret introduced their belt and it was meant to be Flair, but Flair was sick, and but then they bring them back all the time. I don't think that's an issue with WWE. I don't think they're that petty anymore. That they know that they're dealing with small fry, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because Jay was talking. We were talking about that earlier, myself and Jay mentioned that WWE just don't see them as competition at the minute, and that's why they don't.
Well, sure, isn't NXT is going to Tuesdays, isn't it? From next week.
He doesn't want the stank of AEW war all over it.
Yeah. No, it's because of Ian's
Finn Balor going, I can't be looking at that curly-headed fucking jazz-handed.
No, but look, Joe's right. We were only talking earlier on, and there's certain. You have to pick up everything from nothing at times in the world, and the landscape of professional wrestling. The most subtle things mean so much, and massive gestures mean nothing. The fact that fucking Eric was on their programming this year. Was it this year? Was it? It was. Was it?
It
2
was,
months?
yeah, it was.
And now, within 2 months or 2 or 3 months, whatever time frame,
It was
forgive me.
only about a month and a half ago, Jay. Yeah, in
Yeah,
fairness.
but lockdown means time means nothing in lockdown. But the simple
Absolutely.
fact that
I'd agree with that.
fucking Bischoff has a HOF nomination, and which is richly and rightly deserved. The fact that he has a nomination in the same year that he was working on AEW speaks volumes to me about Vince McMahon's view on what was supposed to be his competition. It's like, whatever, come in. You're getting your HOF, ring
Jericho
this year.
isn't getting that HOF yet. You know what I mean?
We spoke about that as well. There's weird things happening in the world of pro wrestling right now. There's a lot of funny things happening. I mean, I seen on Facebook today that apparently Broken Skull Ranch is going to have a guest real soon, which came out of left field for me, honestly. Weird. There's weird things happening in the world of pro wrestling right now.
Chris Jericho.
Jericho, yeah.
On Broken Skull?
Yeah, on
Next
the 11th,
week, yeah.
on the 11th of April.
You know what I would love to do? Or, sorry, what I would love to happen? That man needs to come home.
He's always there is no place for him except for the place that made him the first unified champ. He'll always come home. That's the end of the story.
I agree, Jay. Me and you have talked about this countless times. He's tried the AEW thing. I know. Listen, Vince will buy out that contract and go, Tony, there you go. Take that as a fucking, happy Christmas. See you later.
Look, everybody
Jericho
comes home.
Doesn't need to be doing that shit anymore.
I don't think it's about that. Look, Vince loves men who test him. Men who don't test him get forgotten. They're lost up by the wayside.
Oh, and you know what? Tony was very, very foolish. Actually, now I'm actually sorry. I've lost myself now because Tony is very, very foolish because he didn't put them into exclusive contracts. Vince puts you into an exclusive contract. So Vince is actually going, I can get Jericho on a fucking podcast on my show, and Tony can't do shit about it. And Jericho's still going to get paid. And Jericho is just so fucking... Actually, I actually hope Jericho's okay because he's just constantly talking a lot of weird
He's not
nonsense.
okay. I don't think he's okay at the moment.
I don't think so, no. No, I don't think
I think he's lost a run of himself. I think he had a little mini midlife crisis. I think everything that he was sold as the new promotion he was moving to was whipped out from under him. I think he was a sincerely great attribute to that company when he was Le Champion, and we've seen over the last 4 or 5 months, it didn't pan out that way. And
well, now it's the Kenny Omega show. It's the how fast can you fucking do your bullet fingers and how fast can your fucking hairline recede with fucking John Moxley, Well, I like John Moxley,
but if you refer back to our previous episode where we reviewed AEW Revolution, you would notice how we mentioned in the tag match how irrelevant Chris Jericho was made look. So
yes, that's the point. I suppose that what I'm trying to make, and like because I mean Chris Jericho legitimately could, and in some situations, some people should be on the Mount Rushmore. You know what I mean? There's definitely a case.
No, he is. You can't undo his work. He is. For me, he's on one of them. I don't stand for Rushmores, mind you. I don't need to pick 4 over a tapestry of.
Oh no, I know, but I'm just saying, like for a lot of people, he's top 10. A lot of people, he's their number one, the same way like we'd have our number ones. You know what I mean?
No, he's a generational.
I hate to see like, it's the same with like the kid MJF. He needs to be having a conversation with Vince. You know what I mean? He needs to go to the Hall of Fame with.
That's also inevitable. You can't become great until you.
I know Joe was nodding his head there. I'm not saying yet, Joe. I'm not saying right now.
No, he has his whole life in front of him. He's still a child.
But he definitely needs. Eventually, that needs to happen. If he wants to be a world star, it's not going to happen in TNA in a closet, and it's not going to happen in fucking, a football field in Jacksonville. So I think we need to let the old Cyndi Lauper song said, some boys take a beautiful girl and hide her away from the rest of the world. And you know the song I'm singing about. And it's the same with someone like MJF. He is too good. He's rock level fucking charisma. And Well, at least nearly there. And if it could be worked on, he needs to be in the top fed to do that, in my opinion.
He's about 10 years away from it, but he's a diamond in the rough right now, and it doesn't take much to shine in AEW. It really doesn't.
He's got all the right aspects, though, to be.
Yeah. But the problem is when you're shining so brightly in a fucking quagmire of feces, you go up to Connecticut and you realize even their mid carders are superstars anywhere else.
Dude, I think he would shine on all of them. Imagine him having a fucking conversation with Jordan Devlin. Jordan Devlin, I love you, no disrespect, but he would shit all over you on the mic, and that's a fact.
Yeah, some make him mic, some make him work. It's different.
Well, he can work too. That's why
he works nice, but I don't think he's to the level of Devlin work.
Oh no. Yeah, Jordan, I failed to mention. You have him on that.
Absolutely. And you know what? Ultimately, all that matters is between belts. Everything else is just bleh.
Sure, Devlin would know that anyway. Like, I mean, Devlin's
absolutely.
Devlin, you know, I didn't need to mention that. I just thought.
Well, just in case our viewers and listeners haven't realised, we have entered our hot topic section at this stage for this week, and we would like to just salute and thank Eric Bischoff for his contribution to the business.
Listen, before we do that, can we hear Joe's opinion on it? I don't believe we heard Joe's opinion on Bischoff.
No, it's his opinion on MJF. Wasn't it?
We have moved on.
Yeah, about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, no. In fairness,
Noel likes the hot topic on MJF. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I'll just say quickly on Bischoff, absolutely, and 110% deserves a Hall of Fame spot, no doubt about it. The only thing I find a big pity about the Hall of Fame is that it's not a wrestling Hall of Fame; it's a WWE Hall of Fame, and it's not a real thing. It's not like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where it's an actual museum.
It will be. It will be one day.
Yeah, I hope it. I certainly hope so. But on the MJF thing, MJF is phenomenal. Everyone knows that. But I think if he went to WWE, he'd be too diluted. He couldn't do the whole kayfabe thing that he has pushed to the absolute limit at AEW, and before that, long before that in the indie scene, where like he was basically telling kids to go fuck themselves. Like,
you remember he used to do that beside kids in wheelchairs? He was standing beside kids in wheelchairs going like that.
That's what I mean. He'd be completely and utterly like sanitized at WWE, and we've seen. Like, I don't know. Like we've seen it so many times with these guys coming in with big fanfare, you know, and then just disappearing in a little puff of smoke in the machine.
But Joe, what if he went to NXT? He'd have that ability to.
No. NXT is very different. Like you see, guys come in there with big pomp and ceremony, and the rocket is strapped to them, you know, and they're shot to the moon. Then they end up on Raw or SmackDown, and nothing happens. They just disappear.
I heard Jim Cornette said that recently. Yeah, Jim Cornette said that, didn't he? Sorry, Joe. Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, but you look at Ricochet disappeared, Aleister Black disappeared, Andrade disappeared, even Finn Balor disappeared.
But his resurrection. Not true. The problem, like from a professional wrestling discussion, the things that I used to think when I was 22, I no longer see true as 42. The thing about Vince is to win a protracted war, you have to see the battlefield in 10 years' time. And what he likes his performers to do is come in and eat shit for a long amount of time before he says, okay, now I trust you. Let's run with you.
Yeah, well,
and there's a lot of men.
I'm with Joe on that.
You've said that before, Jay. You've gone through that before, but Andrade's gone. He got his release. He's gone.
I didn't know who he was before he left.
He
didn't do 10 years in front of me.
I think
but he done great in NXT.
That's lovely. That's lovely.
NXT, you know, they take their talent and they do what they can. EC3, there's another guy the rocket was strapped to him in NXT. And even before NXT, the rocket was strapped to him and he was brilliant. Goes up to the main roster, nothing. You know, if Vince McMahon doesn't take a particular shine to you, forget about it. And
unless Vince likes, unless you've got like blonde hair, a little kind of heart tattoo with like a little kind of knife going through it, and you're willing to like bend over and be like, oh, boss, that's what Vince likes. He's very strange. Sorry.
I don't
Also,
think
you're talking
that's
about is one of the best in the history of the business.
yeah,
but neither here nor there.
Didn't draw much though. Just saying.
Yeah, but
I
Anyway,
don't care too much for his artistic skills, but in the ring, he was a joy to watch.
He was a joy to watch. I absolutely.
Well, hey, listen. If I'm not wrong, why is the Miz still wearing fucking championship belts at this late stage in his career?
Who?
I think the best example.
Fucking Miz.
The best example in terms of
Miz.
Jay's,
Okay.
the best example in terms of Jay's point has to be Bobby Lashley.
And look at the Bobby we have now.
I would agree with that. Well, I would say the best. Yeah, actually, even more so than Drew McIntyre. Yeah, absolutely. I think Drew McIntyre.
This is a lifetime business, and if you can't do it over a protracted amount of time whilst continually drawing money and selling T-shirts slowly and taking care of business in the ring, being safe, not being injured, why, as a man who runs a multi-million-dollar company, would he drape you with his business gold? He's been burned so many times in the past. Unless you invest in him as your boss, why should he invest in you with raises every year through your career? The longer you eat shit, the more you'll get paid.
But Jay, you could say that then about our own Finn Balor, like we said. You know what I mean? He made him more money. He made him more money in 1 year when he was in the main roster because he outsold John Cena and fucking Roman Reigns. But then he was like, oh, he's not big enough. And you know what? His hair isn't long enough, and he doesn't have a heart tattoo with a knife going through it. I can't jack off to him.
Bollocks. Let me explain something to you.
How is it bollocks? Tell me why.
I'm going to tell you why.
Please do.
The man who recreated the wrestling scene and investment in time over expenditure is the guy I love. Listen, no.
No shush.
I can't explain until you listen.
Yeah.
No.
I just love how Vince gets a pass for Hogan's shy. Hogan's shy, but Vince gets a pass. I just don't understand it.
I don't understand what you're saying, sir. Warrior ruined everything for everyone that came after him because
Warrior is actually irrelevant in this. If we're talking in the grand scheme of WWE, Hulk Hogan is here. Warrior is like there.
Agreed. So
let's keep Warrior out of it. Yeah.
I'd like to keep him in it to make the point that I initially made.
And I'm going to shut up now, so go ahead.
Warrior fucked everything up for everybody who came after him because he was a bollocks. He refused to work properly, and he was a big draw, quick job, fucking in and out. The other fella invested heavily in him, and everybody who came after him, Vince was burnt on him.
Yeah.
So everybody has to eat shit for 10 years before they earn their big run. Balor's different. I don't believe Balor was relegated to NXT. I believe he was sent down to lend the brand credibility because he was the best in the world at the time. Why would you have somebody who's the best in the world at the time and lose him in the mix in a product that you already have that's successful when then you could take him as a simple piece of fucking an entity, a fucking physical specimen, send him down, rest him, put him against men who were nothing, let the robe come off him onto them, and allow the world of pro wrestling to see why Triple H chased him for 5 years before he fucking got him.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I don't believe he's down there because he's in the bad books. I believe he's down there because he's the best in the world, and he is the only one who can legitimize a whole fucking roster. I don't believe he's down there because he's terrible.
To be fair, Jay, I am going to do this to myself. Right? Watch this. Because you explain it better every time, and I got it out of you by just mentioning whatever that I needed to do. That is absolutely perfect. Thank you.
I'm not wrong, though.
It's 100% true, though. Niall, what would you say to that?
Well, you know, people harp on about how Vince wasn't happy with his size and stuff like that and all. There's not much difference in the size of Finn Balor and the size of Shawn Michaels.
No.
You know?
No.
So like
in fact, Triple H turned around and said it's pretty much the exact size.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe this stuff that comes out about Vince relegating him down there. I mean,
no, most certainly not.
I agree.
He was sent down to elevate, not relegate.
Absolutely.
He was sent down to raise that company, that the brand. This is a man who's a purist wrestling wet dream.
Is there a better wrestler on the planet Earth right now? In my opinion, of course I am biased. I will say no, but I do not believe that there is. If Vince is thinking to himself, right, we bring him back up, we put him in a program. Forget about like Balor has to come up and win the title straight away. Forget about all that nonsense. He can go into a program with someone like AJ Styles, and that's money right there. Do you know what I mean? There's so many possibilities, in my opinion, anyway.
You know what the ticket drawer is for me as a viewer, as a professional wrestling fan and a long-term fan and a lifer? Finn Balor versus fucking anybody.
Yeah.
I'm sold.
Yeah, that's true.
Sold.
He's
You
the best
have me.
wrestler on the planet.
Sold.
There's no doubt. I mean, I knew it the day I met the man. Jealous as I was, but I knew he is without a shadow of a doubt the best wrestler on the planet right now. And I think
Yes.
Vince does know that he has that, because I mean, Noel.
It doesn't
There's
matter
a
what
bit
Vince
of
knows.
there's a bit of
H
a
knows.
recurrent. There's a bit
H
of a
and Sean know.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a recurrent theme here where like we have Pete Dunne. Oh, Pete Dunne looked great in that match. Oh, Adam Cole looked great in that match. Oh, such and such looked great in that match. It's always Balor. You know?
I think the only conundrum they have to figure out is they have to figure out how they're going to market him to the moon. And once they figure out how to market him to the moon, like it's unquantifiable how.
But it's easy though, Noel. It's easy. He's a good-looking fella, right? So you can market him without that stupid smile as a fucking baby face. Because I think there's one thing that Finn Balor doesn't need to be a.
You're missing something. You're missing something. There's certain people in the world you don't have to market; they just do it themselves, and they don't have to. No, the information comes straight off the T-shirt sales. They already know
exactly. But that's what I was going to say. But you've got two pieces with that puzzle, though, Jay, and I agree with you. I do agree with you. But I think you have two pieces with this particular puzzle with Balor. You've got right. You can always break out the demon thing if they want that. You know, because Vince likes the kiddie shit, blah blah blah. If he wants that, that's there. And Noel made a great point a couple of years back to me. He was like, look, if you're gonna have him do that, have him do it all the time. You know what I mean? Have him do it all the fucking time, because there's no point in him just suddenly getting possessed by the demon Balor in Ireland.
Well, there's this queue going up to the main card. Do you know what's unfinished business with the Fiend? The fucking demon.
Well, yeah, fair enough. But the problem is you pigeonhole them then. I think, and I think we're all in agreement on this, the lad is chiseled from fucking granite. You know what I mean? It's like Jim Cornette said, he goes, it's like Dynamite Kid without the bullshit.
Without the bullshit. Yes.
You know,
what praise. What great praise.
And he's a good looking guy. It's like one of the lads from fucking
he's also like
that team that he likes. He was like he's a fucking male model fucking head. And he's from Ireland. It's perfect fucking business.
I just think at a time in the business when you have lost some of, say, the monsters, if you like, with the likes of Kane and Taker and players like that. I think when he comes out as the demon, I think it's different level.
It is. It
doesn't matter about the size. I agree with you, Noel.
Because it's used so sparsely, it is a very valuable commodity. And the fact that we haven't seen that demon raise his ugly head, you have any idea when that pops through the curtains?
That is going to pop.
Going to happen.
I think it's going to happen at Mania, personally.
We are waiting for an audience. We are waiting for people in the seats. I mean, if you're the ringmaster of a 3-ring circus, you know exactly who's going on last, who you need to get them back first again the next time. I don't think he's been rested, not retired in NXT. He was sent down there to lend credibility to the brand. He was sent down there to learn credibility to the belt. But he's also retired other things in his career for an awful long time. And we've spoke this before. I don't particularly enjoy Bray Wyatt as a wrestler simply because this eater of gimmicks bullshit needs to go away. Look, he's entertaining. I did love him when he was the fucking, what you call that? When he was Bray Wyatt, the fucking Cajun Swamp.
I liked him as Bray Wyatt, yeah.
But literally the Fiend is just a lift of the demon. It's like, here, give us that. An Antichrist persona, give me that. And then the other fellow was sent down here, you go rest your bones, lend credibility to this new startup development. H has been after you for about 8 fucking years, and now that he has you, he needs you. and you need to do business down there. But sooner or later, we all know what has to happen, and it is going to fucking tantalize when you break that curtain and you're that motherfucker again, and everybody knows Demon don't lose. Demon don't lose.
I think it was also. I mean, I suppose you have to look at it as well. Before they pushed the button on absolutely marketing them to the moon with millions of dollars, if you like, I think maybe he was sent down to NXT as well to, test the water in terms of an extended run with no injury and no knock-on effect and stuff like that.
Yeah, rest you, son.
And I think he's proven that. I mean, if you look at the injuries he got down there, a lot of it was from just sloppy work, really, and not his sloppy work. You know what I mean?
Look, he had broken jaw.
Sloppy work from other people.
Like, that's what I mean, not him.
Like he got a broken jaw. I fought someone on Twitter over this, and I was like, do you know what? I'd love to actually do this to you, you little bollocks. Oh well, he's quite clearly a fucking. What was the word they used? It was the same word they used for Randy Orton. It's quite clear that he's fragile, and I was like, anyone's fragile if they get a kick in the fucking chin when they're not expecting it. You know what I mean? That's a fact. Like Joe is a rugby man. You get a kick in the fucking chin and you're not expecting it, and it breaks your jaw. What the fuck can you do about it? Nothing.
I think if you get a kick in the chin, even if you are expecting it.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
No,
yeah,
but I have a funny feeling that might be part of what's going on down there. I think he's absolutely going to explode, and I think they're going to put the machine behind him. And I think, do you know what? I think they've only scratched the surface with him. As good as what we've seen so far, I think that man has so many more layers to give to the company, and I think they know it. They know they have a gem there. The wrestling is at a level; it's always at that level. I mean, when does he ever give you any?
But it's went up. It's actually went up a level that I never even thought it could.
Well, it has in terms of he's been in with really, really good dance partners as well. You know what I mean? There's no.
But he's calling these matches though. He's called you see him against Pete Dunne. Yeah. I'm going to point one thing out to you in that match, and I implore anybody to go back and watch this match. Pete Dunne goes to do the jump on the second rope and to do the backflip, and he botches it. And what does Balor do? Boom. As soon as he comes down, he hits the knee. Simple.
Yeah.
Basics. Things that, I played fucking, WWE 2K1, so I know what to do. No. You don't know what to do in that situation. It's real. Like, there are things that, and Joe, you probably know what I mean by that, don't you?
You have to remember, Ian, as well, that he's had it, 20 years nearly at this stage? You know what I mean? If he's
a veteran.
Yeah. If he's not able to cover up stuff like that at this stage, he has no place being there. But of course, he is absolutely every place to be there because he's bloody fantastic.
You be careful now, Joe.
No.
You be careful now, son.
No, but honestly,
push your mouth.
But anyone that's in something as long as he's been, if you can't cover up a botch like that, you've no reason to be
but
there.
But on live television, though, Joe, is what I'm saying is lots of people freeze. That's the point I'm making.
Look, Ian, people freeze in front of fucking in front of tiny audiences. You know what I mean? Like in fucking GAA halls. So it's or whatever the equivalent is in the other parts of the world, community halls or whatever. But, he's but like as you said, Ian, that that happened. No problem. Didn't panic. Threw in the knee. No worries.
Natural, yeah.
It's no problem, because he is fantastic at what he does, and always, as far as I'm concerned, always has been brilliant at it. And it's about, I'd love. I'm not as optimistic as you guys. I know you guys are talking about how he's going to come back as the Demon. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be huge. He's going to be the next. He's going to be absolutely massive.
I'm sending
as a TNA fan, I'm not surprised you live without hope.
Joe, I'm sending this to Fergal directly after this as well. So choose your words.
I am. I
threaten him when you need his honesty.
Yeah.
I threats won't stop that, Jay.
Tell him to come to Sligo if he wants to see me.
Joe, your bright passport right now is on the line here.
No, I have
fucking right it is, because I'm actually gonna fucking ring the county council now.
It's no, lads. It's nothing against Finn. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's fantastic. I'd strap to
Best in the
strap
world.
to any day in the week. I think he's unbelievable. But I think I think the WWE won't do it. I don't think they will. I think he.
Well, you say that about everybody.
I do. Yeah,
He
yeah. I know.
does.
I do say that about everyone. I think he.
I just want everybody dead.
Yeah, I think he had his chance. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. And I think that's it. I think it's over. I think he'll be amazing in NXT. If he does come back up, I think it'll just be a mid-card run. I don't think they'll strap a rocket to him. I once again, as I've said many a time before,
You'd love to be wrong.
I'd love nothing more than to be wrong. But I think his time has come and gone, unfortunately, at the top with WWE.
As a man who chooses to live in Sligo, Joe, I hate to say it to you, but you're inevitably going to be wrong every single time.
Oh, well, I haven't been wrong so far, but I'm not long in this game now.
Consider that some geographical accuracy.
Well, gents.
Well, boys, until then, I got to bow out myself.
Yeah. As always, it's been a pleasure. We've arrived at the end of the show. So, as always, head over to YouTube, the Dynamo Podcast.
Bishop Good.
Smash that subscribe and bell notification button. Head over to Anchor as well. We're on Spotify, Podbean if you want the audio versions of this show. And until next time, we will chat to you again.